Chapter 189. In the end, Lu Ping suppressed the greed in his heart and quietly left Golden Scale Residence before the demon soldiers of Golden Scale Residence charged into the manor. Although Golden Scale Residence was several tens of thousands of li away from Golden Flood Dragon Island, once Taoist Master Jinli discovered that his residence had been invaded, it would only take him a few hours to rush back. Moreover, it was impossible for Lu Ping to reach Huangli Island within these few hours. In this period of time, Taoist Master Jinli would be able to kill him 8 to 10 times over. Unless Lu Ping's cultivation reached the core forging realm and his divine sense transformed, he would be able to use Lu Ping's innately tyrannical divine sense to sever Taoist Master Jinli's connection to his own aura. 3 days later, Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island without alerting anyone. Although Lu Ziyuan and the others had already left Huangli Island, Jinling only dispatched a few idle blood condensation cultivators from Tianling Mountain. Huangli Island was still heavily guarded, and Lu Ping only entered the island with the identity of a rogue cultivator. The next day, Lu Ping called Feng Tao to his residence. When Feng Tao learned that Lu Ping had returned, he was overjoyed and immediately reported the shop's recent situation to Lu Ping. Lu Ping impatiently waved his hand and said, "You can tell Senior Marshal Sister Hu about these matters after she returns. I don't have the patience to deal with these matters. Just hand over all the 500-year-old spiritual herbs that you've purchased during this period of time to me." Feng Tao knew that his employer was a noble alchemist. He was already over 50 years old and had low aptitude. He thought that he had no hope of reaching the blood condensation realm in this lifetime, so he used this position as the shopkeeper of Lu Ping's shop to provide spirit stones to his juniors. Lu Ping and Hu Lily admired Feng Tao's honesty. Since Huangli Island had become more prosperous, there was a need for a blood condensation cultivator to keep up appearances. Lu Ping and the others were in the golden years of their cultivation and were pursuing greater progress. Naturally, they wouldn't spend too much time on trivial matters like the shop. Therefore, Lu Ping focused on nurturing Feng Tao. When Feng Tao reached the 9th layer of blood condensation, Lu Ping rewarded him with one of his remaining blood condensation pills to help him reach the blood condensation realm. Because of this, Feng Tao was even more grateful to Lu Ping. This was also why Feng Tao, along with Hu Lily and Qin Lian, stopped Li Yu and the others from entering Lu Ping's cave abode 5 years after Lu Ping went missing in the Sea of Monsters. After that, Lu Ping's status on Huangli Island rose higher and higher. It was said that he even became the disciple of a famous enlightened master in Zhenling. While Feng Tao was secretly glad that he had a good eye for talent, he also knew that Lu Ping's future was limitless. Thus, he worked even harder. Lu Ping took the storage bag containing the spiritual herbs from Feng Tao and looked inside. He smiled and said, "Not bad. There are some rare spiritual herbs inside. We're going to use them this time. Even though there aren't many of them, there's a lot of different types. Has the number of cultivators going out to sea increased recently?" Feng Tao smiled and said, "That's right. Ever since our sect joined forces with the other sects in the North Sea to hunt down the demonic beasts, many cultivators believed that the demonic beast's counterattack would be suppressed. Thus, they all went into the sea. Naturally, the harvest is much better." Lu Ping pondered for a moment. He thought about the recruitment of demon soldiers in Golden Scale Manor and felt that this was not a simple matter. He remembered that the ultimate goal of Lu Ziyuan and the others going out to sea to hunt was to cause a scene at the Golden Flood Dragon Island Lord's birthday banquet. Thus, he asked, "Has there been any news from the sea recently?" Feng Tao didn't know what Lu Ping's goal was, but he still said, "The biggest news recently is the opening of 7-star skies. Our sect's harvest from 7-star halls is a notch higher than Xianling sect's. Also, when the 7-star skies is about to close, the other sects and demon cultivators joined forces to attack the Overflowing Oceans sect. I heard that the Overflowing Oceans sect suffered heavy losses." Feng Tao was also nurtured by Zhenling since he was young. Although he came from a small cultivator clan, his sense of belonging to Zhenling was no less than Lu Ping's. When he heard that Zhenling had defeated his old rival, Xianling sect, he was naturally very happy. "Oh, right. There's also some news about you, boss. It's said that you made a name for yourself in the 7-star skies and received the title of 3 Heroes of True Spirit. Boss, you're really young and promising." Lu Ping was stunned. Wasn't the title given to Ji Zixuan and Yin Zichu as twin heroes of true spirit? How did it become 3 heroes? And he even added himself on top of it. Lu Ping didn't care about these empty titles. He asked, "Is there any other news about me?" Fang Tao thought for a moment, then said, "The news about 7-star skies has only recently arrived, so it's not very accurate. I think it said that boss obtained some kind of treasure, and that after obtaining 7-star skies, you didn't meet up with the other cultivators of our sect, and that you've already fallen. The rest is very vague, and I don't know if it's related to boss." Lu Ping knew that most of the things he had done in the 7-star sky were kept a secret. However, just the few things he had revealed to the public were enough to arouse the greed of some people. In addition, there might be people with ulterior motives pushing him in the dark. Who knew if there would be trouble in the future? However, on second thought, Lu Ping remembered that he had always been in a lot of trouble. If he hadn't gotten into these troubles, Lu Ping wouldn't have been able to reap so many rewards. Understanding this, Lu Ping didn't bother with these matters any longer. Instead, he turned to ask, "How are your 2 brats' cultivation going?" When Fang Tao heard Lu Ping ask about his 2 children, he immediately smiled. The 2 of them can be considered diligent in their cultivation. Although their talent isn't very good, thanks to Boss's grace, they've been able to buy quite a few medicinal pills refined by Boss at a low price. The eldest has already reached the 7th layer of blood refining, and the youngest is just a bit weaker, but she's also reached the 6th layer. In half a year, they should be able to become 3rd-level disciples of the monastery. Lu Ping nodded. Tell the 2 of them to cultivate properly. The late blood refining realm is a bottleneck. Every step forward will be more difficult, so they can't be careless. If they manage to reach the 9th layer of blood refining before leaving the monastery, then come find me for a few blood-condensing pills." He choked and said, "How can this be? How can this be? How can I let the boss spend so much money? Alas, these 2 kids are so lucky. I thank the boss on behalf of these 2 kids. In the future, they must remember the boss's kindness." Fang Tao was excited all of a sudden. His face was trembling, and his eyes were wet. He sobbed and said, "How can this be? How can this be?" Lu Ping saw his emotional expression and somewhat incoherent speech. He knew that although the Fang family was a cultivator family, the family head with the highest cultivation base was only a mid-blood condensation inner disciple. After Fang Tao reached the blood condensation realm, he became one of the 3 blood condensation cultivators in the Fang family. Naturally, Fang Tao's status would rise. But such small families were as common as the hairs on an ox in Zhenling. These family circumstances were actually better than rogue cultivators in that they had the protection and inheritance of the giant tree that was Zhenling. But in terms of daily cultivation, they were even worse off than rogue cultivators. At the very least, rogue cultivators only cared about themselves, while clans had many more to consider. To the Fang clan, a blood-condensing pellet was as valuable as a family heirloom. Back then, when Fang Tao succeeded in breaking through to the blood condensation realm, the Fang clan and the other clans that were on good terms with the Fang clan were envious of him. When the Fang clan's clan master learned of Lu Ping's situation, he repeatedly urged him to help Lu Ping. Just as Lu Ping was about to say something to Fang Tao, his expression changed. With a wave of his hand, the ice river killing array outside opened a gap, and a golden ray of light flew in. Lu Ping reached out and caught it. It was a magic sword that could transmit sound from a long distance. It was surging with arcane energy. Clearly, it was the handiwork of a core forging enlightened master. Lu Ping probed it with his divine sense. Immediately, enlightened master Chu Xuanqing's forthright voice sounded, "Kid, you're in trouble. Return to Chonghua Manor immediately." Now there were 6 mini spiritual veins in the cave abode, and it was getting closer and closer to 10 mini spiritual veins to be upgraded to a mini spiritual vein. However, when Lu Ping thought of the small spirit vein in Taoist master Jin Li's immortal's cave, he felt a burst of unhappiness in his heart. After he advanced to the core forging stage, no matter what, he had to make a plan for that spirit vein. The only way to return to Tianling Mountain was through the teleportation formation on Xianqi Island. Lu Ping was currently considering the feasibility of using the teleportation formation on Huangli Island, but it seemed to be impossible at the moment. Lu Ping originally planned to visit Taoist Master Chu Xuanqing and find out more about the old man. Unexpectedly, Taoist Master Chu seemed to have already expected his return and ordered his disciples to stop him, telling him to return to Chonghua Palace. Lu Ping rushed all the way to Tianling Mountain's Chonghua Lake. In order to show his respect to his master, Lu Ping personally rowed a small boat to Chonghua Palace on the island in the middle of the lake. Coincidentally, he met an old man coming out of the Chonghua Palace. Lu Ping recognized this old man. He was one of the 2 core forging registered disciples who sat outside the Chonghua Palace when Taoist Master Lu Xinling opened the forum for him. Although the other party was a registered disciple, Lu Ping still didn't dare to neglect him. He stepped forward and saluted. "Senior Brother Luan, how have you been recently?" When Senior Brother Luan saw Lu Ping, he smiled. "So it's Junior Brother Lu. Young Miss was looking for you." "Junior Brother, you came just in time." For a moment, Lu Ping was confused. He didn't know who the young miss was. Could it be 9th Junior Sister Jiangzi Xuan? Looking at Lu Ping's face full of suspicion, Senior Brother Luan didn't explain anything. Instead, he shook his head and walked away. Lu Ping had no choice but to walk towards the Chonghua Palace. When he entered the Chonghua Palace, Lu Ping saw Taoist Master Lu Xinling sitting at the head of the hall. He must have already known of his arrival. Lu Ping stepped forward and saluted. Taoist Master Lu Xinling smiled. "I didn't expect to have a treasure boy under my wing." Lu Ping knew that what happened in the 7-star sky had probably been found out by his teacher. He quickly said, reporting to Master, although this disciple had some gains in the 7-star sky, the title of treasure boy is absolutely unworthy. Taoist Master Lu Xinling smiled. "At least you have some rationality. However, for this title to reach my ears, it's obvious that someone is causing trouble. The sect is already preparing to spread the news that the treasures you obtained in the 7-star sky have been given to the sect. It can be considered as washing away your treasure boy reputation." Lu Ping thought about it and understood the meaning behind Taoist Master Lu's words. However, he still asked reluctantly, "The sect will say what treasures this disciple has given?" Taoist Master Lu smiled but didn't answer. Lu Ping knew that he had asked a stupid question, so he took out 1/3 of the 36 golden nuts from the jade box in his storage ring and placed them in the box for his teacher. He said, "These are the 12 golden nuts that disciple obtained when the 7-star sky hall opened. I am willing to give them to the sect." Taoist Master Lu was stunned and said, "It's actually this item?" As he spoke, he took a look and said with a smile, "Originally, the sect wanted me to be the villain. Although you are my direct disciple, this treasure was ultimately obtained by you. However, the sect blocked the covetous light of outsiders for you. Moreover, there are many things that the sect has to worry about internally, so it's inconvenient for me to do so. However, being able to obtain these golden nuts is still beyond my expectations." Lu Ping naturally understood the meaning behind it. The sect personally came forward to eliminate the treasure name on Lu Ping and also to clearly convey a message to the North Sea cultivators. That was, Lu Ping was valued by the sect. Anyone or force that had designs on Lu Ping would be punished by Xinling's entire sect. With Xinling's status in the North Sea, it was indeed possible. Taoist Master Lu saw that Lu Ping understood his meaning and didn't explain further. Instead, he said, "Originally, I only wanted you to take out some things to shut some people's mouths. However, since it's this kind of thing, I might have to let Laozu come forward and ask for some good things." Taoist Master Lu took out a golden sound transmission magic sword. Lu Ping saw that it was exactly the same magic sword that Taoist Master Chu Xuanqing gave him. Taoist Master Lu opened his mouth and said something to the magic sword. Then, he placed the jade box on the magic sword. A golden light flashed and the magic sword left the hall of Zhonghua Beauty. Taoist Master Lu saw the doubt on Lu Ping's face and said, "You are already an alchemist, so you must have heard of the golden indomitable pill. Do you know the effects of the golden nuts?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "Disciple knows that this golden indomitable pill is an excellent body-forging pill. However, Disciple doesn't have the pill recipe for the golden indomitable pill." Taoist Master Lu looked at Lu Ping with a smile that wasn't a smile. Lu Ping knew that his teacher had already seen through his intention to ask for the golden indomitable pills recipe, so he changed the topic and asked, "Disciple has one thing that I don't understand. Although the golden nuts are rare, the golden indomitable pill is only a half-step core forging pill. How did it provoke our sect's Lao Tzu to come forward?" When Taoist Master Lu heard this, he thought for a moment and said, "You shouldn't know about this matter. Every transcendence stage Lao Tzu will face a calamity when his cultivation base is high enough. If he can't overcome it, his soul will fly away and scatter. In order to overcome this calamity, a tyrannical body is a great help. The majority of methods to strengthen the body are not as good as the natural cleansing of the cultivator's body by spiritual qi during cultivation. Therefore, every method that can strengthen the body outside of cultivation is extremely precious. This golden indomitable pill is one of the better methods." Lu Ping heard this and seemed to understand something. Taoist Master Lu advised him again, "The sooner the body is strengthened, the better. I think you should have a few golden nuts on hand. If you obtain the recipe, quickly refine them into the golden indomitable pill. You can refine the retaining youth pill, so you should also be confident in refining the golden indomitable pill." Lu Ping nodded in agreement. However, he saw the empty space in front of Taoist Master Lu suddenly shake and shatter like glass, forming a ripple like the surface of the water. This was the second time Lu Ping had seen this kind of situation. Two jade slips suddenly penetrated through the ripples on the water surface. Taoist Master Lu caught the jade slips in his hand, stood up slightly, and bowed towards the ripples in the space. The ripples in the space shook again and returned to their original state. Taoist Master Lu looked at the jade slips in his hand and handed them to Lu Ping. He smiled and said, "It seems that this time, Lao Tzu was willing to take advantage of me." Lu Ping reached out and took the two jade slips. The two jade slips were not covered with any seals. Lu Ping penetrated his divine sense into the jade slips. He was naturally looking forward to the reward from Transcendent Stage Lao Tzu. One of the jade slips contained the recipe for the golden indomitable pill that Lu Ping wanted. This was Lu Ping's third half-step core forging pill recipe after obtaining the retaining youth pill recipe and the heart-dissolving pill recipe. The second jade scroll recorded a complicated seal. Even with Lu Ping's divine sense, which was far stronger than a ninth-layer blood condensation realm cultivator, he still felt dizzy just by looking at it. Moreover, he only had a superficial understanding of the seal. However, Lu Ping felt a sense of familiarity with it, as if he had encountered something similar before. Lu Ping looked at Taoist Master Lu with uncertainty and asked, "Teacher, is this a treasure restriction?" Taoist Master Lu nodded approvingly and said, "It is indeed a treasure restriction. Your divine sense has yet to evolve into divine sense, yet you were able to browse through this restriction. It is clear that your divine sense cultivation is not bad. This restriction is a water attribute treasure restriction. Throughout history, when enlightened masters who cultivate the art of listening to the waves from the sea refine their natal magic treasures, this restriction is the first choice. I can see that the magic energy in your body is pure and vigorous, far surpassing what the art of listening to the waves from the sea can achieve. Naturally, you had your own fortuitous encounter, but you have yet to forge a natal magic treasure. You would rather not have one than have one, so I asked for this treasure restriction for you. In the future, when you reach the core forging realm, this treasure restriction will be of great use." Chapter 191. Lu Ping had received great benefits. He knew that if it wasn't for his teacher appearing, an ordinary cultivator would only receive special protection from the sect if they offered the golden nuts. They wouldn't receive a treasure restriction or a pill recipe as a reward. Lu Ping was grateful. After thinking for a moment, he took out 6 more golden nuts and said, "This disciple still has a few remaining golden nuts. Since these fruits are very useful for cultivators to strengthen their bodies, this disciple will not offer them to the sect and forget teacher's principles." Taoist Lu looked at the golden nuts in Lu Ping's hand, and his eyes lit up. He chuckled and said, "You're really smart. These golden nuts are indeed very useful to me. Say it. What do you want? Although I can't compare to our sect's Lao Tzu, I will not let my disciple suffer a loss." Lu Ping quickly waved his hand and said, "It's natural for a disciple to be filial to his teacher. There is no reason for me to ask for benefits from teacher." Taoist Lu smiled and said, "How can there be a teacher who covets the treasures in the hands of a disciple? Fine, since you won't say it, I will give you another treasure restriction. This treasure restriction is also of the water attribute. It can complement the treasure restriction from before and can be used to improve your life magic treasure in the future. It's also not bad to use it to refine other magic treasures." Lu Ping looked at the two more treasure restrictions in his hand and asked in confusion, "Magic treasures can also be improved with different treasure restrictions?" Lu Ping knew that this was the time for his teacher to explain to him. Once he didn't understand something, he would immediately ask. Sure enough, Taoist Lu patiently explained, "Magic treasures are different from magic tools. The more restrictions there are in a magic tool, the more powerful it will be. It's the opposite for magic treasures. It's best to use one type of treasure restriction only once. The power of magic treasures with two same restrictions is far less than the power of magic treasures with two different restrictions." Taoist Master Lu paused, organized his words, and then said, "The power of a magic treasure depends on two aspects. One is naturally the embryo of a magic treasure, which is the quality of a top-grade magic treasure. The higher the quality, the more restrictions can be superimposed. The second is the type of restriction that can be superimposed. When a magic treasure reaches the top, it can superimpose 9 different restrictions, but the vast majority of magic treasures can't reach this level." Lu Ping thought back to the herb-pounding pestle, mystic treasure he obtained, which was a combination of two identical seals. It seemed like the herb-pounding pestle wasn't a good mystic treasure, but its power was already astounding. He wondered how powerful it would be if it was combined with 9 different seals. On this trip to the 7-star sky, besides obtaining a large number of treasures, Lu Ping's cultivation had also improved significantly. Lu Ping asked Taoist Lu about the problems he had encountered during his cultivation. Taoist Lu answered them in detail and told Lu Ping everything he needed to pay attention to in cultivation. Lu Ping felt that he had benefited a lot. When Lu Ping said goodbye to Zhonghua Palace, more than half a day had passed. After returning to Huangli Island, Lu Ping cultivated while preparing to refine the golden grade pill and the heart-dissolving pill. At the same time, he told Feng Tao to pay attention to the news of the demon realm, especially the news of the North Sea Alliance attacking the demon realm. The difficulty of refining the adamantine pill and the dissolving heart pill was undoubtedly higher than that of a half-step core forging pill like the youth halting pill. The youth halting pill only required 5 types of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs, while the other 500-year-old spirit herbs required more than 20. Moreover, these spirit herbs were common in the cultivation world. The golden grade pill required a total of 36 kinds of spirit herbs. Among them, 12 were 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. The remaining 500-year spirit herbs were also rare. If not for Lu Ping's trip to the Golden Fallen Valley, it would have been difficult to gather them. Even so, Lu Ping only managed to gather 6 batches of spirit herbs. The heart-dissolving pill was even more difficult. Lu Ping looked at the spirit herbs listed in the pill recipe and almost gave up. Refining the heart-dissolving pill required a total of 49 kinds of spirit herbs. Among them, 24 were 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. This was comparable to refining a core forging realm pill. Generally speaking, one of the requirements to reach the core forging realm was to have 27 kinds of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs in the pill recipe. The difficulty of refining the heart-dissolving pill was no less than refining a core forging realm pill. Lu Ping used up more than half of the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs he collected in the Golden Fallen Valley. Finally, he barely managed to gather enough spirit herbs to refine the heart-dissolving pill for 3 batches. Lu Ping finally understood why the Liao clan would venture deep into the Golden Fallen Valley to collect spirit herbs every time the 7-star sky opened. Naturally, he had to start with the easiest medicinal pellets. Each cauldron of golden resilience pellets would take about 2 days to concoct, and each cauldron would require 2 golden nuts as the main ingredient. Lu Ping's first cauldron of golden resilience pellets didn't go smoothly due to his unfamiliarity with the process. 2 days later, Lu Ping took out a single golden pellet from the cauldron that smelled like charcoal. Lu Ping took a deep breath and encouraged himself, "Not bad. I thought we'd all fail again. Who would have thought we'd be able to succeed? Lu Ping carefully recalled the refining process. Besides being unskilled and limited by Lu Ping's own alchemy level, the biggest shortcoming was the process of condensing and purifying the pill. During this process, an alchemist needed to purify the spirit liquid and remove as much impurities as possible from the spirit herbs. This would improve the quality of the pill and increase the success rate of the pill. Compared to the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs, the impurities in the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs were naturally less, but it also meant that the impurities were more difficult to remove. Lu Ping thought for a moment and suddenly remembered that when he helped Chanlian upgrade Landslide to a top-level magic tool, he used the spirit fire smelting purification technique. A bold idea suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's mind. He didn't know if this purification technique was feasible in alchemy. Thinking of it, Lu Ping immediately began to refine the second batch of pills. This was also because Lu Ping had enough golden nuts in his hands. If he let Fa Xiang Laozu find out that Lu Ping actually used the golden energy pill, whose value was no less than a core forging stage pill, to experiment on alchemy, and also used a refining method, who knew if Laozu would slap Lu Ping to death? The first time was always accompanied by failure. During the process of condensing and purifying the golden energy pill, Lu Ping directly absorbed the power of the blue spiritual fire to purify the impurities in the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. However, he was unable to control the temperature and directly vaporized the spirit liquid of the spirit herbs. Even so, the second batch of pills still brought Lu Ping a golden energy pill. Lu Ping was overjoyed. It seemed that this method would work. However, it required more precise control of the blue spiritual fire, and the requirements for divine sense were undoubtedly higher. After discovering a new method, Lu Ping was in high spirits. He tirelessly threw himself into refining the third batch of golden energy pills. He knew that as long as he completely grasped the application of this purification technique in alchemy, his alchemy skills would undoubtedly reach a higher level. During the third purification, only a quarter of the spirit liquid evaporated, and Lu Ping obtained 2 golden energy pills. During the fourth batch, Lu Ping finally completely grasped the purification technique. The spirit liquid did not evaporate, and 3 golden energy pills were produced. With Lu Ping's continuous refining, in addition to the application of the purification technique, his understanding of the golden energy pill also deepened. During the fifth batch, Lu Ping finally reached a success rate of 40%. When the sixth batch of pills was successfully refined, Lu Ping looked at the 4 golden energy pills inside and knew that this was the limit of his current alchemy skills. 15 golden energy pills. Because the box of golden nuts was obtained by Lu Ping with the help of Yin Zichu and Ji Zixuan, Lu Ping planned to give 5 to each of them after they returned from Golden Flood Dragon Island. Chapter 192. There was still no news from Golden Jiao Island. However, Fong Tao heard that the various sects had sent cultivators to hunt demonic beasts in the demon territory. Lu Ping carefully analyzed the news and found that there was a lot of news about Zhenling. However, there was no news about Lu Ziyuan, Qi Zicai, Ai Buotao, Miao Weidong, or the 18 generals of the North Sea. Clearly, the previous news was a smokescreen used by the sects to confuse the demon race. Lu Ping focused all his energy on cultivation and pill concoction, especially pill concoction. Because Lu Ping had successfully modified a purification technique for smithing and applied it to pill concoction, it greatly improved Lu Ping's pill concoction skills. Lu Ping was currently debating whether he should concoct the heart-dissolving pill. The heart-dissolving pill was even more difficult to concoct than the golden grade pill. It was almost the same as a core forging realm pill, but the heart-dissolving pill was far more valuable. The heart-dissolving pill could ignore bottlenecks and allow a blood condensation realm cultivator's cultivation to increase by 1 level after 3 days of seclusion. The 24,000-year-old spiritual herbs used to concoct the heart-dissolving pill were all extremely rare and precious. Each of them was a main ingredient in any core forging realm pill. If Lu Ping failed to concoct the pill, he would lose more than 150,000 spiritual stones. In the end, Lu Ping decided to concoct the heart-dissolving pill. After Lu Ping returned from the demon territory, especially after discovering that the Golden Scale residence was recruiting demon soldiers, Lu Ping felt that a war was about to break out between the human and demon races. Perhaps the North Sea sect's scheme against the Golden Jiao Island Lord was the fuse. Therefore, Lu Ping urgently needed to increase his strength. Moreover, Lu Ping was already in the late blood condensation realm. If a war broke out, Lu Ping might not have the time to concoct the heart-dissolving pill. The process of concocting the heart-dissolving pellets was a painful one. The first cauldron of medicinal pellets turned into ashes with a loud bang during the concoction process. Just like that, 150,000 spirit stones were wasted. Lu Ping also had to add in a high-grade spirit stone to ensure that the cauldron had sufficient spiritual energy. After concocting the heart-dissolving pellet for the first time, Lu Ping rested for 2 whole days before he started concocting the heart-dissolving pellet for the second time. Lu Ping now knew that the biggest obstacle for him in concocting pellets close to the core forging realm was his divine sense. Divine sense was more detailed and precise than divine sense. At the same time, it was also stronger than divine sense. Even though Lu Ping's divine sense was far stronger than a peak blood condensation cultivator's, he still exhausted his divine sense at the last moment of pill condensation. It was easy to imagine what would happen if a normal blood condensation realm pill refiner tried. Now that he was prepared, Lu Ping didn't make any mistakes during the second cauldron of heart-dissolving pellets. After the cauldron was opened, a bright red pellet jumped out from the cauldron. Lu Ping ignored the exhaustion of his divine sense and reached out to grab the only heart-dissolving pellet in his hand. The bright red heart-dissolving pill seemed to be beating like a heart. Lu Ping knew that this was because the heart-dissolving pill was extremely close to the core forging realm. It had already surpassed the half-step spirit transformation level of other half-step core forging realm pills. It was close to the spiritualization level of a core forging realm pill. Even though Lu Ping summarized his previous 2 attempts, he still only succeeded in refining one heart-dissolving pill. It seemed like this was the extent of his pill refinement skills. Lu Ping sighed inwardly. Shocking news finally came from the demon territory. Among the North Sea's demon race, the peak core forging realm lord of Golden Jiao Island, who was known as the #1 person under Fa Xianglaozu, had been attacked by the North Sea cultivators on the day of his 600th birthday. The various demon cultivators who had come to celebrate his birthday suffered heavy losses. The news had just reached Huangli Island, so the exact situation was unknown. Feng Tao hurriedly reported to Lu Ping. Lu Ping had already expected this, so he wasn't surprised. He only told Feng Tao to continue gathering information from the cultivators who had returned from the sea. The North Sea's various sects had come prepared, so it wasn't surprising that they won. Lu Ping was concerned about the number of casualties on both sides, as well as the degree of participation of high-level cultivators. This was the essence of this conflict. Apart from that, he also wanted to know about Hu Lily and his group of friends. He hoped that they would be able to protect themselves in this large-scale conflict. For some reason, Lu Ping felt a sense of urgency. What he needed to do now was to increase his own strength and prepare for the possibility that the conflict might escalate further. In a cultivation room in the belly of the mountain, Lu Ping held a bright red pill in his hand. It was one of the 2 heart-dissolving pills Lu Ping had obtained by sacrificing 4 to 500,000 spirit stones worth of spirit herbs. The effects of the heart-dissolving pill would only appear once for each cultivator. Cultivators couldn't use the heart-dissolving pill to increase their cultivation continuously. Therefore, the best time to consume the heart-dissolving pill was at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm. That way, they would be able to reach the peak of the blood condensation realm in one fell swoop and start preparing for the core forging realm. The heart-dissolving pill was said to be able to increase a cultivator's cultivation without damaging their foundation. However, as a precaution, Lu Ping still prepared some of the best pills he could currently use in case of emergencies. At the same time, he held 2 precious high-grade spirit stones in his hand to aid his cultivation. After the heart-dissolving pill entered his stomach, the first layer of the pill dissolved rapidly, turning into a stream of medicinal energy that flowed into Lu Ping's blood vessels, widening them. An intense pain swept through Lu Ping's entire body. Immediately after, the second layer of medicinal energy spread throughout his body, repairing and nourishing his blood vessels. The third layer of medicinal energy turned into a huge wave of spiritual energy that rampaged through his blood vessels. Lu Ping tried his best to circulate the North Sea wave listening technique. With the help of his powerful divine sense, Lu Ping's abundant arcane energy finally began to guide this external spiritual energy. At the same time, it gradually refined this spiritual energy into his own arcane energy. Lu Ping's arcane energy quickly rose to the peak of the seventh layer of the blood condensation realm. As Lu Ping's arcane energy became more abundant, the dormant foundation bloodline in his body finally became active again. The feeling of hunger came again. This time, the flood dragon bloodline sharpened its blade and targeted the earth ape bloodline. However, just as Lu Ping's foundation bloodline subdued the ape bloodline's resistance, the enormous spiritual energy contained in the heart-dissolving pill suddenly began to run out. Lu Ping sighed inwardly. He knew that this would happen. The cultivation of the North Sea wave listening technique naturally increased the density of arcane energy. It also lowered the bottlenecks of cultivation. However, this dense arcane energy caused Lu Ping to spend a lot of time accumulating and polishing the arcane energy in his body every time he advanced. Although the heart-dissolving pill could increase a cultivator's cultivation by one layer, it was still insufficient against Lu Ping's unique cultivation technique. Right now, Lu Ping's cultivation was only a step away from the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm. Without hesitation, Lu Ping swallowed 2 late blood condensations, blood spirit pellets, and a surge of spiritual energy flowed into his veins. Although the medicinal efficacy was incomparable to the heart-dissolving pellet, this was the last straw he needed. The 2 high-grade spirit stones in his hands came in handy. Along with the spiritual energy emitted by the 6 miniature spirit veins, the spiritual energy continuously flowed into Lu Ping's body. With the help of this spiritual energy, the flood dragon bloodline finally devoured all the spiritual energy in the ape bloodline. In his heart core, the 8th condensed blood bead gradually formed. Lu Ping had finally stepped into the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm. It took Lu Ping 5 days to consolidate his cultivation base in the 8th layer. He looked at the 2 high-grade spirit stones that had been crushed into powder in his hand and the thin spiritual energy in the mountain belly. He smiled and thought to himself that he was lucky this time. Lu Ping knew that he had only broken through to the late-stage blood condensation realm less than 3 months ago. If others knew that he had broken through to the 8th layer now, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. Thus, he used the spirit concealment technique to conceal his cultivation to the 7th layer. This way, even core forging enlightened masters wouldn't be able to discover Lu Ping's true cultivation unless they deliberately probed him. When Lu Ping came out of seclusion, he saw a voice transmission talisman floating outside the ice river killing formation. Lu Ping called it over and saw that it was Feng Tao reporting the latest situation in the demon territory. Because Lu Ping was focused on his seclusion, he had no choice but to use a voice transmission talisman to leave a message. The most shocking part of the surprise attack on Golden Jiao Island was when the sects of the North Sea launched their attack. That day, when the cultivators lying in ambush around Golden Flood Dragon Island launched an attack and killed their way to Golden Flood Dragon Island, they were temporarily blocked by Golden Flood Dragon Island's Grand Array. Just as the formation grandmasters of various sects began to break the island-guarding formation of the Golden Flood Dragon Island, an earth-shattering laughter suddenly came from the Golden Flood Dragon Island. This old man is celebrating my 600th birthday. I wanted to invite my fellow Taoists of the demon race to join in the festivities. I didn't expect that my fellow Taoists of the human race would also come uninvited. Just as the Golden Jiao Island Lord finished speaking, a shocking aura soared into the sky. The clouds in the sky suddenly changed color. At this moment, the Golden Jiao Island Lord seemed to have become the ruler of the sky. Oh no, the wind is dancing and the clouds are changing. This is the sign of the Dharma phase Laozu. This old demon has already achieved Dharma phase and advanced into the Dharma phase. This old demon is probably not having a birthday banquet, but a Dharma phase assembly. I'm afraid so. I also suspected that even if the Golden Jiao Island Lord was invincible in the core forging stage, it would be impossible for him to invite 108 core forging stage demons from 72 prefectures for a birthday banquet. If it's a Dharma phase assembly, then it makes sense. Since this old demon has achieved Dharma phase, we are definitely not his match. I'm afraid we'll have to return in defeat. Just as the North Sea cultivator's morale was falling due to the Golden Jiao Island Lord's soaring aura, a gentle voice came from afar. I wanted to leave after watching the show, but I didn't expect my old friend to have achieved Dharma phase. Xianlin is very comforted. Perhaps I'll have to ask for a cup of wine. As this gentle voice came, the sky that was originally dark and bright suddenly cleared up. The Golden Jiao Island Lord's aura was forcibly pushed back. But Golden Jiao Island. Zhang Xianlin, it's you? I didn't expect you to have also achieved Dharma phase. Then I should call you Zhang Tianlin. This is what you're relying on to besiege my Golden Jiao Island. The Golden Jiao Island Lord was obviously shocked. Perfected Zhang Xuanlin's arrival caused the North Sea cultivator's morale to soar. The shadow of the Golden Jiao Island Lord's advancement to the Dharma phase was swept away. The perfected masters and disciples of the various sects looked at the Zhenling disciples beside them with envy. The Zhenling perfected masters and disciples were stunned at first, then they were overjoyed and proud. They didn't expect that their sect's perfected master Zhang Xianlin had already achieved Dharma phase. Becoming a Dharma phase Laozu meant that he would be the guardian of the sect. Zhenling's strength would greatly increase because of this. Presumably, Xianling's sect would have to think twice before claiming to be the #1 sect in the North Sea. Chapter 193. The Dharma Stage. In the eyes of most cultivators, it was an unreachable existence. It was the decisive power of a sect or force. Not to mention the fact that perfected Zhang Xianlin had reached the Dharma stage. His sudden appearance had shocked both the humans and the demons. While the North Sea cultivators' morale was boosted by perfected Zhang Xuanlin's appearance, only the Xianling cultivators had mixed feelings. It had long been said that the number of Zhenling's Dharma power Laozu had already surpassed that of Xianling's sect. Xianling's sect was only able to maintain its position as the #1 sect in North Sea because it had the only late Dharma power Laozu in North Sea. Now that the Zhenling had another Laozu, Xianling's sect's position in North Sea was in jeopardy. The situation on Golden Jiao Island changed once again. The Island Lord and Zhenling's Tianlin Laozu flew into the sky and fought all the way. In a short while, no one knew where they went. The departure of the two Dharma adepts, who had been dominating the scene, immediately lit the fuse of the war between the humans and the demons. With a loud boom, the protective array of Golden Jiao Island was broken by the combined efforts of the spell formation masters of the various sects of the North Sea. The North Sea cultivators rushed in, and the demon cultivators of Golden Jiao Island rushed out. Soldiers fought soldiers, generals fought generals. The battle lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. The North Sea sects were well prepared and gained the upper hand. The demon cultivators were forced to retreat on Golden Jiao Island. In the end, they had to defend the Golden Jiao Temple. After several unsuccessful attacks, the cultivators were worried that the North Sea demon cultivators would come to support them. Thus, they retreated from Golden Jiao Island and prepared to leave the demon territory. When Lu Ping received the news, the cultivators were already retreating from the demon territory. However, along the way, the cultivators frequently fought with the demon cultivators who came to support them. Thus, the speed of their retreat was not fast. It was said that more than 30 enlightened masters had fallen in this battle. The North Sea sects had also lost close to 20 enlightened masters and countless blood condensation realm cultivators. All in all, the North Sea sects had the absolute upper hand. Although Lu Ping felt it was a pity that he couldn't witness the battle between hundreds of core forging realm cultivators, he was even more excited when he heard that the appearance of the two Avatar great ancestors had changed the outcome of the battle between tens of thousands of cultivators. He couldn't wait to be there and join the battle. However, Lu Ping forced himself to calm down. In this kind of battle between tens of thousands of cultivators, individual factors were negligible. Unless he reached the Dharma power stage like perfected Master Zhang Xianlin, he would need to be at least in the late stage of core forging to protect himself in such a situation. After calming down, Lu Ping prepared to fuse the myriad poison meteorite essence in the myriad poison serum with his protective energy, the heavenly splendor water curtain. This was a remarkable technique recorded in the North Sea Wave listening technique that Lu Ping had compiled from the Sea Wave listening technique and the Sea Soaring Spirit Art into the North Sea Wave listening technique. The so-called remarkable technique was divided into two situations. One was when a cultivator cultivated magic arts, sword arts, tool arts, formations, alchemy, tools, and talismans. After the so-called cultivation arts reached the intent realm, the cultivator's own comprehension would break through the shackles of the intent realm and obtain a kind of great freedom, great magical power. This was a remarkable technique. This kind of remarkable technique varied from person to person, and its power depended on the individual's luck and perception. The other situation was when a cultivator used the heaven and earth oddities to fuse with their own magical power, purposefully strengthening their own cultivation of a kind of magic art. This could also be called a remarkable technique. The power of this kind of remarkable technique depended on the cultivator's mastery of external forces and requirements. What Lu Ping needed to do now was to cultivate the second kind of remarkable technique. According to the records in the North Sea Wave listening technique, the heavenly splendor water curtain's protective energy could be fused with some water attribute heaven and earth oddities. When the heavenly splendor water curtain fused with 3 water attribute heaven and earth oddities, it could become a kind of remarkable technique called the heavenly splendor true shield. The myriad poison liquid that was condensed from the myriad poison meteorite evil chi was one of the best quality among the water attribute heaven and earth oddities. It was perfect for fusing with the heavenly splendor water curtain. Lu Ping opened that heavenly splendor water curtain and first absorbed the golden myriad poison meteorite evil chi from the myriad poison liquid into the heavenly splendor true shield, according to the cultivation method of the heavenly splendor true shield. However, this process was extremely smooth, far less complicated and cautious than the cultivation process of the heavenly splendor true shield. Lu Ping thought about how he used the heavenly splendor water curtain to fuse with the demon's spiritual energy of the 3 green sea snakes in the Golden Valley to delay the erosion of the golden mist. Thinking about it, this process was undoubtedly compatible with a certain cultivation method of the heavenly splendor true shield and shortened the cultivation process. Overjoyed, Lu Ping simply skipped this process and directly used the art of water manipulation to absorb a trace of the myriad poison liquid. According to the method of the heavenly splendor true shield, he slowly refined and fused it. When this trace of the myriad poison liquid was fused with the heavenly splendor water curtain, Lu Ping could feel the gang chi protecting his body becoming a little stronger. Therefore, he continued to fuse the myriad poison liquid drop by drop into the heavenly splendor true shield. When Lu Ping had fused 1296 drops of the myriad poison liquid and used up almost half of the large bluestone vat of myriad poison liquid that Lu Ping had brought back, the azure, heavenly splendor true shield was completely dyed with a layer of gold. Clouds and smoke circulated within the gang chi, emitting a strange fragrance. This was the unique smell of the myriad poison liquid. Perhaps it was due to the fact that things would move in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. This kind of extremely potent poison unexpectedly carried such a strange fragrance. Lu Ping was quite helpless. Lu Ping displayed the pale golden, heavenly splendor water curtain, protective gang chi. At this time, the heavenly splendor water curtain was almost as strong as a top-grade magic tool refined from ordinary third-grade spirit materials. It was not much worse than the cloudy sky. If the heavenly splendor water curtain was combined with the cloudy sky, the defensive strength of the two would undoubtedly be greatly enhanced. In addition, when the heavenly splendor water curtain was fused with the myriad poison liquid, it could also corrode the enemy's magic power and magic tool when attacked, reducing the pressure of the attack. Of course, as one of the few poisons in the world, the myriad poison liquid also allowed Lu Ping to no longer fear the vast majority of poisons in the cultivation world. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was immune to all poisons. 10 days later, Lu Ping's great success had already been achieved. At this time, the Battle of Golden Jiao Island was nearing its end. The cultivators of the various sects gradually withdrew from the Demon Territory's sea area and returned to their respective sections. In the process of the North Sea sects withdrawing from the Demon Territory's sea area, the demon race cultivators who heard the news and rushed over to support Golden Jiao Island caught up with them. The cultivators of the North Sea's sects fought and retreated at the same time. After they met up with the cultivators who came to support them, both sides launched a great battle at the border of the sea area. This battle was not the slightest bit inferior to the Battle of Golden Jiao Island. The difference was that this time, the demon race was not at a disadvantage. Both sides suffered casualties, and in the end, both sides had no choice but to retreat. When Lu Ping came out of seclusion, the several hunting teams that set off from Huangli Island had already begun to return. Lu Ping's heart was on fire. He was anxious to know how Hu Lily and his friends were doing. Chapter 194. Before Lu Ping had time to find Hu Lily and the others, a telepathic sword once again summoned Lu Ping to Tianling Mountain. This time, it was second senior sister Li Xuanru who was looking for Lu Ping. This was the first time Lu Ping had been to second senior sister's cave abode. Rather than calling it a cave abode, it was more like a small farm garden. Perfected Li Xuanru had built a few thatched cottages here, and then surrounded it with a fence. Around the fence, there were many fields planted with spirit herbs and ordinary fruits and vegetables. When Lu Ping entered the courtyard of the small farm, he found that he was not the only one here. Third senior sister, fourth senior sister, and seventh senior sister were all here. Only eighth senior sister, Long Qian, 10th senior sister, Jiang Zixuan, and sixth senior sister, Dong Ziyu, who was in seclusion, were not here. Seeing Lu Ping's arrival, Perfected Li Xuanru smiled and said, "Ninth junior brother is here. Sixth junior sister is still in seclusion. Eighth junior sister went out to participate in the Golden Flood Dragon Island battle. I don't know if she has returned yet. I heard that youngest junior sister secretly followed Grandmaster to Golden Flood Dragon Island. With Grandmaster's protection, there should be no problems." They sat around a wooden table in the middle of the garden. There were some fruits on the table. Although they weren't spirit fruits, they were fresh and juicy. Lu Ping guessed that second senior martial sister must have grown them herself and just picked them to serve the guests. Lu Ping took a fruit and took a bite. It tasted good. When everyone saw Lu Ping's actions, they all smiled knowingly. They knew that Lu Ping did not treat them as outsiders. Second senior sister was very happy. She continued, "This time, I believe everyone knows about the battle between the humans and demons on Golden Flood Dragon Island. Grandmaster, Perfected Jiang Xianlin, successfully advanced to the Dharma stage and became another Laozu of our sect. He also defeated Golden Flood Dragon Island's Lord, who had also advanced to the Dharma stage, in front of the North Sea cultivators. It can be said that his name shocked the North Sea." Lu Ping didn't know that Perfected Jiang Xianlin had defeated Golden Wyrm Island Lord. He only knew that Perfected Jiang and Golden Wyrm Island Lord had been fighting all the way and that Perfected Jiang had disappeared. That was why the North Sea cultivators who had surrounded Golden Wyrm Island were able to attack it. Second senior sister, why didn't we know that Grandmaster had advanced to the Dharma stage? Isn't it said that when a cultivator advances to the Dharma manifestation stage, there will be a huge astronomical phenomenon? Seventh senior sister Hua Zifeng couldn't help but ask. Reverently Xuanru smiled mysteriously and said, "Why didn't it trigger a celestial phenomenon? Have you forgotten about the huge spiritual vortex at the peak of Tianling Mountain several months ago?" Seventh senior sister covered her mouth in surprise and said, "Isn't it said that Fa Xiang Laozu is going to practice magic? Could that be the celestial phenomenon triggered by Grandmaster's breakthrough to the Dharma manifestation stage?" Reverendly Xuanru nodded slightly. Lu Ping saw that third senior sister and fourth senior sister's expressions were calm. They probably already knew about it. Sure enough, Reverendly Xuanru continued, at that time, the sect had already started to make arrangements for Golden Wyrm Island. Therefore, other than the cultivators in the sect who were at the core forging stage and above, the other disciples didn't know about it. The huge celestial phenomenon was also covered up by the sect using Fa Xiang Laozu as an excuse to practice magic. Lu Ping recalled the expression on Reverend Lu's face when she noticed the celestial phenomenon. Presumably, she knew at that time that it was Reverend Jiang Xianlin who had broken through. However, after receiving the Jade Scroll from the Void, teacher had ordered that Laozu was performing magic. Presumably, she had received some kind of order at that time. Reverently Xuanru continued, In the North Sea, a cultivator's advancement to the Dharma manifestation stage only happens once every several decades or even hundreds of years. Moreover, advancing to the Dharma manifestation stage means stepping into the highest level of the cultivation world. Therefore, every time a cultivator advances to the Dharma manifestation stage, a grand ceremony must be held to celebrate and promote Lao Tzu's divine might. Naturally, the sect will not give up this opportunity to raise the sect's status and promote Grandmaster's mighty name. Lu Ping had already guessed the reason why second senior sister had called everyone here. As expected, Reverendly Xuanru continued, our sect is now already preparing for Grandmaster's Dharma Manifestation Assembly. The disciples under Grandmaster of Carefree Manor are already busy. Invitations have been sent to all the big and small forces and famous itinerant cultivators in the North Sea. I believe that this time, Grandmaster will use the Golden Flood Dragon Island Lord to establish his might. I'm afraid the scale of the Dharma Manifestation Assembly will be unprecedentedly grand. Although my Chonghua Manor and Carefree Manor are two manors, we are actually one. Reverendly Xuanru saw that 7th Senior Sister Hua Zifeng wanted to say something but stopped. She smiled and said, 7th Junior Sister, I know what you want to ask, but your 3rd Senior Sister, 4th Senior Sister, and I don't know much about Master and Grandmaster. I can only tell you that before you, 8th Junior Sister and 9th Junior Brother become Master's disciples, there will be no Chonghua Manor. We will all be disciples of Carefree Manor. After listening to 2nd Senior Martial Sister's explanation, Lu Ping knew he had a little more understanding of the inner workings of the sect. But just as they were about to talk about it, 2nd Senior Martial Sister suddenly stopped. Lu Ping knew that the 3 core Forging Realm Senior Martial Sisters must know something about their teacher and enlightened Master Jiang Xianlin. They just couldn't say it out loud. Lu Ping knew that the first part of the conversation was mainly for him and 7th Senior Sister to hear. The two of them clearly hadn't been in Chonghua Manor for a long time, so they didn't know much about the relationship between Chonghua Manor and Carefree Manor. Then, Reverendly Xuanru explained the purpose of today's gathering. She said, after the Dharma Assembly, all the participating sects, powers, and itinerant cultivators will have to send congratulatory gifts. Even the enlightened masters of the various branches of the sect will have to do the same. It's just that Master obviously won't be attending the Dharma Assembly, but we, as disciples, can't be disrespectful. In the past, although the enlightened masters of the two branches don't interact with each other, the disciples of both branches are close. In our sect, they have always been regarded as one. The enlightened masters of the two branches have never stopped this situation. Today, I called all of you here to discuss what kind of congratulatory gifts we should send. Lu Ping knew that this kind of thing was usually discussed by the 3 core Forging Senior Sisters, and 2nd Senior Sister would make the final decision. Calling him and 7th Senior Sister over was just out of courtesy. After all, his blood condensation realm cultivation wasn't high enough to participate in these things, let alone the Transcendence Dharma Assembly. The 3 Senior Sisters discussed for a long time, and in the middle, 7th Senior Sister also joined in. She asked more questions out of curiosity. The disciples of Chonghua Manor were all friendly, and the 3 Senior Sisters didn't ignore Hua Zifeng and Lu Ping just because they were core forging enlightened masters. From time to time, they would ask for their opinions. After discussing for a long time, the 3 of them finally decided on 2 congratulatory gifts. One was 5 3,000-year-old ordinary spirit herbs, and the other was a 2nd-grade top-grade spirit material, the Void Sound Stone, which was born alongside the Earth-grade origin treasure, the Windsong Stone. 4th Senior Sister Wang Xianjing said helplessly, although these 2 gifts are good, on the day of the Transcendence Dharma Assembly, there will be many similar congratulatory gifts. Our Chonghua Manor and the Unfettered Manor are like birds of a feather. If the congratulatory gifts are given to the crowd, who knows what kind of rumors will spread. 7th Senior Sister Hua Zifeng and Lu Ping looked at the congratulatory gifts with stars in their eyes. However, they knew that this was because the 2 of them hadn't reached the core forging realm yet, and their foundation and knowledge couldn't be compared to the 3 Senior Sisters. Lu Ping thought for a moment, then took out the remaining 6 golden nuts from the jade box and said, for Senior Sisters, do you think this can be used as a congratulatory gift? Third senior sister Zhao Xuanji looked at the golden fruit in the box, and her eyes lit up. She asked with some uncertainty, could this be a golden nut that can be used to strengthen the body? It is indeed a golden nut. This little brother was lucky enough to obtain a few in the seven-star sky. A few days ago, besides handing over a few to the sect, I also gave 6 to teacher. Since teacher has given them to me, I naturally have to give them to Grandmaster as well. Not to mention, this little brother has also received Grandmaster's care several times. Lu Ping smiled and explained to third senior sister. Li Xuanru looked at Lu Ping's golden nuts and nodded slightly. Although the value of a golden nut can't compare to a 3,000-year-old spirit herb, it is still a rare item. It is enough to be used as a congratulatory gift for Grandmaster. With these 3 congratulatory gifts, my Chonghua Manor won't lose teacher's face during the Transcendence Dharma Assembly. Fourth senior sister Wang Xianjing was used to teasing Lu Ping. Seeing Lu Ping take out the treasures, she smiled and said, no wonder there are rumors that junior brother has gotten a great bargain. There are even some gossipers in the sect who say that ninth junior brother is the boy of many treasures. It turns out that the rumors are not groundless. Lu Ping knew that fourth senior sister was reminding him. He remembered that teacher had also said that there were people in the sect who were jealous of what he had obtained in the seven-star sky. Naturally, he was grateful, but he still said, the boy of many treasures is too much. I think those people should also know that I have already handed over my gains in the seven-star sky to the sect, and there is not much left in my hands. Seventh senior sister also understood the reason for the matter and felt injustice for Lu Ping. These people just can't stand to see others do well. After leaving second senior sister's place, Lu Ping went to Chonghua Palace to visit Master Lu Xianling. He asked some questions about cultivation, especially since Lu Ping was preparing to refine his 12 gentian beads. Naturally, he didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Unexpectedly, Master Lu Xianling wasn't in Chonghua Palace. He wasn't even in Tianling Mountain. When he asked the maidservants, they didn't know anything. They only knew that Master Lu Xianling suddenly snorted coldly in the morning yesterday, causing the cultivation room to tremble. After that, he left Chonghua Palace with a gloomy face and disappeared. Lu Ping was suspicious, but something that could make Master Lu angry was not something he could interfere with right now. However, teacher didn't inform the 3 core forging senior sisters before he left, so it shouldn't be a difficult matter. As soon as Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island, he immediately asked Feng Tao if Lu Ziyuan and the others had returned. However, he learned that the 6 teams of cultivators from Huangli Island didn't return at the same time. Instead, they returned in scattered groups. Everyone looked tired, and some even had injuries. As for the first patrol team that Lu Ziyuan was in, there was no news from them. Lu Ping was shocked and immediately went to the meeting hall on the island. When he arrived at the meeting hall, Lu Ping received a piece of news that shocked and angered him. On the way back, the 6 patrol teams of Huangli Island were attacked by a core forging expert in the buffer zone. Yang Xian and Mu Zhenren were seriously injured. Then, a large number of demon beasts suddenly appeared. Huangli Island's patrol team was forced to disperse and break out of the siege. The first patrol team was missing. Chapter 195. Originally, the North Sea sects had gathered at the border between the buffer zone and the monster spirits' waters. After meeting up with the cultivators who'd rushed to their aid, they fought a fierce battle with the pursuing monster spirits and forced them back into the monster spirits' waters. Afterwards, the cultivators dispersed and returned to their respective sections. Led by Master Xian Mu, Huangli Island's 6 patrol squads also returned to Huangli Island. However, just as they separated from the rest of their sects, a giant fist suddenly appeared in the sky and smashed down viciously at the Huangli Island cultivators. Not good. Master Xian Mu cried out and fought with his life on the line. Unfortunately, his cultivation was only at the 2nd level of core forging, and he was gravely injured and spat out blood. The aftermath of the spell dispersed, and under the leadership of the cultivators in charge, the squads deployed the 3 talents and 5 elements formation to resist. Although they barely managed to block the spell's aftermath, the cultivators in charge of the formation were all gravely injured, and the 3 talents and 5 elements formation collapsed. Just as everyone was panicking, the fist didn't appear in the sky. Just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, they discovered that they'd been surrounded by monster beasts that had suddenly emerged from the sea. There were 2 mini monster beasts, and they couldn't form a formation in their haste to defend themselves. With no other choice, the heavily injured Master Xian Mu had to attack again, creating a gap in the monster encirclement and ordering everyone to split up and break out. Lu Ping's heart raced with worry. Why hadn't anyone sensed such a large group of monster beasts entering the buffer zone and gathering there? Also, why hadn't the mysterious culprit who'd injured Master Xian Mu with a single blow attacked Master Xian Mu? The Jinling cultivators present were already powerless to resist, so why did they let the monster beasts do something unnecessary? Just as Lu Ping was about to return to his residence to pack up and head out to sea, Chunlian and Du Feng suddenly walked in. The 2 wielded magic tools and emanated a murderous aura. Their bodies were stained with blood, and there were many monster beast wounds on their shoulders and legs. Clearly, they just returned to Huangli Island. Chunlian's face lit up when he saw Lu Ping in the meeting hall, then darkened. Ignoring Lu Ping's urgent questions, he tugged on Lu Ping's arm and said, "Come with me to Master Immortal Lu's residence. He's injured, so we'll talk when we get there." Hu Lily was missing. Lu Ping focused all of his divine sense on the man in front of him. His tremendous divine sense, which could cover a radius of 160 to 700 feet, overlapped layer by layer and enveloped the man in front of him tightly. Around Lu Ping, an invisible, sharp airflow rolled, tore, and shattered many things in the cultivation room. His hair stood on end. Master Immortal Lu, Yao Yong, Zhong Jin, and the other members of the 1st Sea Patrol Brigade, as well as the leaders and deputy leaders of the other 5 Sea Patrol Brigades, a total of more than 20 people, watched as Lu Ping unleashed his might on the man before him. Divine sense suppression. This is something only a core-forging enlightened master can do. This Lu Ping is only at the 7th layer of the blood condensation realm. How can he suppress us? The 2 8th-layer blood condensation realm vice leaders sitting beside him were looking at Lu Ping with pale faces. Beads of sweat formed on their foreheads and trickled down their cheeks, but they didn't dare to move an inch. Lu Ping's body trembled in fear as he looked at the 8th-layer blood condensation realm vice leaders. Master Immortal Lu Ziyuan had already forgotten about his internal injuries. He stared blankly at the ferocious expression on Lu Ping's face and murmured, "Formless turning into tangible form." This is a phenomenon that occurs when one's divine sense is about to transform into divine sense. This kid's divine sense has already reached such a level. In other words, my senior martial sister who voluntarily led the demonic beasts away, allowing you, Long Qian, and 9th junior martial sister to escape? With great difficulty, Lu Ping suppressed the killing intent in his heart and asked word by word. His voice was low and deep as he spoke through gritted teeth. The man before him blushed. It was unclear whether it was because of Lu Ping's suppression or the shame in his heart. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Li Ziming, who was sitting on the other side, laughed dryly and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Lu, please don't be angry. Your murderous expression made Junior Marshal Brother Yuan speechless. Moreover, Junior Marshal Sister who voluntarily led the demonic beasts away. So you can't blame Junior Marshal Brother Yuan. Shut up." Lu Ping turned his head and glared at Li Ziming. His divine sense mixed with killing intent blew up a cloud of dust in the cultivation room and rushed towards Li Ziming. Li Ziming's head was pushed back by the impact of this spiritual consciousness. Suddenly, he felt a burst of dizziness. Li Ziming reacted in an exceptionally angry manner. His whole body's magic power surged. It seemed that if he did not say a word, blood would splash 5 steps away. However, Lu Ping's eyes were like 2 sharp swords. Li Ziming didn't dare to look at him. At the same time, he could feel Lu Ping's powerful divine sense scanning his body. Li Ziming understood that Lu Ping wanted someone to give him an excuse to start a massacre. Li Ziming, who had a grudge against Lu Ping, was undoubtedly his favorite target. Indeed, Lu Ping wanted to kill right now. However, he had been on the verge of death many times, so he didn't lose his mind. Although Li Ziming was trying to help the man in front of him, Lu Ping still slowly retracted his divine sense. The dust that was crushed by Lu Ping's divine sense slowly fell to the ground, and everyone in the cultivation room heaved a sigh of relief. They didn't expect Lu Ping's aura to be able to suppress all the late blood condensation realm cultivators in the room. Lu Ping was still locked onto him. If he couldn't explain himself, he would be greeted by Lu Ping's killing blow. The person in front of him was none other than Yuan Zhan. During the Zhenling Side Hall's grand competition, he was defeated by Lu Ping and eliminated from the competition. Now, he was a 7th-layer blood condensation realm cultivator and a member of the 5th patrol team. Yuan Zhan looked at Lu Ping with lingering fear. His face was still red, but his eyes had calmed down. He said coldly, Junior brother Lu is so majestic. Do you really think you are a core forging enlightened master? Yuan Zhan was actually mocking Lu Ping for being arrogant and not putting the leaders in his eyes. Lu Ping remained unmoved, but his eyes had already turned cold and emitted a dense killing intent. Yao Yong was a hot-tempered person. He couldn't stand people talking in a roundabout way. Moreover, Yao Yong believed that it was a man's job to lure the demonic beasts away, but he used a woman as a scapegoat. He already saw Yuan Zhan as a weakling. Without waiting for Lu Ping to speak, Yao Yong started scolding. If you have something to say, say it. Who are you trying to listen to your nonsense? Lu Ping didn't care about Yuan Zhan's provocative words at all. He only wanted to hear the whole story. If Yuan Zhan couldn't give him a reasonable explanation, Lu Ping wouldn't hesitate to kill him on the spot. Even if Yuan Zhan was telling the truth, in Lu Ping's eyes, Yuan Zhan would only live a little longer. Lu Ping had never hated a person so much. Lu Ping didn't care about the reason why a woman had to take the blame. He just wanted Yuan Zhan to die. Hu Lily died because of him, so he had to die with her. This was the Scarlet Robe Fruit's wrath. Lu Ping didn't hide his anger at Yuan Zhan. Yuan Zhan seemed to have sensed it, but he still tried his best to calm down from Lu Ping's killing intent. He recounted what happened yesterday. Chapter 196. In Lu Ziyuan's training room, the leaders and deputy leaders of the 6 patrol teams were all present. All of them were injured. Other than Hu Lili and Long Qian, all the members of the 1st patrol team were present, and Yuan Zhan was narrating what had happened. That day, after Master Yang Xuanmu gave the order to split up and break out of the encirclement, he fainted due to the exhaustion of his inner Yuan and his severe injuries. A few of the leaders tried their best to protect him. The first group was also split up during the breakout process. In the midst of the chaos, Hu Lili, Long Qian, Jiang Zixuan, and Yuan Zhan gathered together. After breaking out of the encirclement, they escaped towards Huangli Island. The 4 of them couldn't shake off the pursuit of the beasts. Among them, there were 5 to 6 late blood condensation beasts. Moreover, these beasts had the geographical advantage and were extremely fast in the sea. After a series of battles, the 4 of them used up too much of their spiritual energy and slowed down. At this time, Hu Lili said, Junior brother Yuan and junior sister Long, take junior sister Jiang and leave first. I'll lure the beasts away. This time, the beasts are targeting junior sister Jiang. We can't let her fall into the hands of the beasts. Yuan Zhan and Long Qian didn't agree, but Hu Lili insisted. She said that perfected Jiang Xianlin had successfully achieved Dharma and defeated Golden Jiao Island's lord. The beasts couldn't do anything to perfected Jiang, so they wanted to capture junior sister Jiang for revenge. The 2 of them wanted to persuade her further, but Hu Lili had already turned around and ran in the direction of the beasts. Left with no choice, the 2 of them brought the unconscious Jiang Zixuan back to North Sea. Unexpectedly, on the way, a middle-aged female cultivator in palace attire suddenly appeared and snatched Jiang Zixuan from the 2 of them. Yuan Zhan was shocked, but when he heard Long Qian calling her master, Yuan Zhan realized that the person who appeared was Zhenling sect's famous Reverend Lu Xianling, Reverend Jiang Xuanlin's ex-partner and Jiang Zixuan's mother. Perfected Lu Xianling brought Jiang Zixuan and Long Qian back to Tianling Mountain, leaving Yuan Zhan alone to return to Huangli Island. Lu Ping's eyes glazed over and his face was expressionless, as if the person who was angry just now wasn't this person. His tone was calm as if he was talking about something unrelated to him. He asked, Why is Junior Marshall Sister in Huangli Island's patrol team? Yuan Zhan did not answer. Instead, he looked at Lu Ziyuan, who was sitting at the head of the table. Lu Ziyuan coughed twice. His voice was hoarse, and it was obvious that he had suffered serious internal injuries. He said, Junior Sister Jiang must have come out with Jiang Xinlin and Lao Zhu. After that, she came to play with Junior Sister Long Qian and stayed in the first patrol team to replace you. Lu Ziyuan paused and said, before Taoist Yang fainted, he said that the person who launched the sneak attack was indeed targeting Junior Marshall Sister Jiang. The strength of the owner of that fist is definitely at the middle stage of the core forging stage. However, because he was trying his best to hide his identity, he didn't dare to use his full strength. Otherwise, Taoist Yang and I wouldn't have been able to resist him. Lu Ziyuan explained to him, and Lu Ping became a little more respectful. Then, he asked, why did the person who ambushed us leave after one attack? Lu Ziyuan shook his head and said, that I don't know. Shi Lingling, who was sitting to the side, said, Junior Marshall Sister Jiang must have had a protective talisman or some other treasure on her that could have alerted Uncle Lu or Uncle Jiang the moment she was attacked. The person who ambushed her must have sensed it during the first attack and left before the second one. Maybe even Uncle Jiang had already arrived at that time. Everyone's eyes lit up after hearing Shi Lingling's words. After all, Shi Lingling's status was no less than Jiang Zixuan's at this time. In fact, she was even higher than Jiang Zixuan. Since she said that Jiang Zixuan had such a treasure, it must be because Jiang Zixuan had it. Lu Ping remembered that the gatekeeper of Chonghua Mansion had said that yesterday, Master had been angry and suddenly left Chonghua Mansion. Obviously, he had discovered that Junior Marshall Sister Jiang was in danger and went to rescue her. However, Master was definitely not as fast as Grandmaster, who had already reached the Dharma stage. By the time Master arrived, everyone had already broken through the encirclement. Lu Ping still asked coldly, how did you meet Senior Marshall Sister Long Qian and the other two? Lu Ping was as cold as ever. It was as if he had become the master of this training room. He ignored the dozens of leaders sitting around him and only showed a little bit of respect when Lu Ziyuan spoke. However, everyone present was stunned by Lu Ping's imposing manner just now. They quietly listened to Lu Ping and Yuan Zhan's questions. Although Li Ziming's face was filled with anger, he did not dare to show it at this moment. Lu Ping's roar just now had left him with a lingering fear. Yuan Zhan was a little embarrassed at this moment, but under Lu Ping's piercing gaze, he still said, Long Qian is my fiancée. The Yuan and Long families decided on this marriage when we were young. No one present knew about this. Yuan Zhan added, I was worried about Junior Marshall Sister Long's safety, so when we broke through the encirclement, I went to look for her. As a result, there was nothing wrong with Yuan Zhan's explanation. Lu Ping maintained a calm expression after his initial rage. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ping squinted his eyes. It was unknown whether he was thinking about something, or whether he was examining Yuan Zhan to see if he was lying. Just when Yuan Zhan's heart was about to shiver from Lu Ping's gaze, Lu Ping turned around and walked out of the training room. Chunlian hurriedly called out to him from the side. Junior Lu, where are you going? Lu Ping did not even look back. He said, I'm going out to sea to find Senior Hu. Chen Lian hurriedly tried to persuade him. It's already been over a day. Junior, you should return to the Heaven's Spirit Hall and see if Junior Hu's lamp of knowledge is still lit. If it's lit, then we can all go look for it. If it's not, then there's no need. We'll just take revenge in the future. A whistling sound gradually faded away. Lu Ping's deep voice rang out from afar. She won't die. Yao Yong yelled and stood up. He said, Junior Lu, I'll go with you. Before he could finish, he coughed violently and spat out a few strands of blood. Shi Lingling grabbed him and said, How are you going to find Senior Hu in this state? If you go out to sea now, even if you don't die, you'll be a burden to Junior Lu. Everyone in the training room seemed to let out a sigh of relief when Lu Ping left. The pressure Lu Ping brought on everyone was just too great. The cultivators in the training room all stood up and said their goodbyes. It was as if there was a plague in the room. They hurriedly left, without the slightest demeanor of a cultivator. After all the leaders left, only the first group was left in the training room. Yao Yong said angrily, Lung Qian is Junior Lu Ping's senior after all. How could he just watch Senior who throw away her life? Shi Lingling pinched his arm and said, "We didn't see it with our own eyes. It's only Yuan Zhan's side of the story. How can we jump to conclusions?" Zhang Jia had always been close to Hu Lili. If Lung Qian didn't have a guilty conscience, why would she hide in Chonghua Prefecture with her master instead of returning to Huangli Island? Everyone was stunned. Lu Ziyuan said sternly, "All right, this matter ends here. Don't forget that Lu Xinling is Junior Lu Ping's master. The most important thing for us now is to recover from our injuries. I've already sent someone back to Tianling Mountain to check on Junior Hu Lili's consciousness lamp. If it's still there, we'll go out to sea to look for it. If not, let's hope Junior Hu Lili is a good person." Everyone fell silent. Lu Ziyuan had a question tormenting him. Why didn't Yuan Zhan and Lung Qian ask him to go back and save Hu Lili after he arrived? Did they not mention it, or were they lying? Lu Ziyuan believed that Lu Ping also noticed this loophole, but he didn't ask. Lu Ping didn't ask either. It wasn't that he didn't want to ask, but he didn't dare to. What if the two of them did ask for help? Lu Ping didn't dare to think about it, let alone Lu Ziyuan. By the time Yuan Zhan left Lu Ziyuan's training room, it was already nighttime on Huangli Island. When the wind blew on Yuan Zhan's body, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine. If he told others, no one would believe that a late blood condensation cultivator like him couldn't withstand the cold and heat. It wasn't impatience, it was fear. Yuan Zhan didn't admit it, but he knew in his heart that he had lost mentally to Lu Ping, the person who defeated him in the Jinling side courtyard competition. He had lost since then. Even though his cultivation had been rising, he never had the confidence to defeat this cultivator who was younger than him, and whose cultivation was even lower than his. After returning to the training room, Yuan Zhan sat on the praying mat and meditated quietly for a moment. He temporarily forgot about that person's shadow in his mind, then sat there silently. No one knew what he was thinking. There was no light in the pitch-black training room. Only Yuan Zhan's pair of black eyes could be seen flashing in the darkness from time to time. After a while, 3 sound-transmitting magic swords flew out from the pitch-black training room. 3 golden shadows streaked across the night sky of Huangli Island. 2 of them flew towards the northwest, while the last one flew towards the south. In the sky above Huangli Island, in the clouds that covered the starlight, Lu Ping stood on a magic cloud and quietly looked down at Huangli Island until the 3 sound-transmitting magic swords flew out from the training room. Lu Ping landed on the cloud and came to the edge of Huangli Island. A rat that looked like a fat pig with its belly almost touching the ground suddenly crawled out from the ground near Yuan Zhan's training room. It walked silently towards the edge of Huangli Island. Its body became smaller and smaller, and by the time it arrived in front of Lu Ping, it was only a foot long. De Bao climbed onto Lu Ping's shoulder and squeaked a few times with a helpless expression. Lu Ping frowned and muttered to himself, "It didn't say anything? It seems like this guy is a cautious person. Moreover, I don't think anyone would be willing to visit him at this time. It's a pity that the 3 sound-transmitting magic swords couldn't be intercepted. Once the sound-transmitting magic swords are intercepted, they will explode. Not only will they not be able to get any information, but they will also alert the person who sent the sound-transmitting magic swords." However, one of the magic swords flew towards the south. Huangli Island is located in the southeast of Jinling, and further south is Xianling Sect's territory. This is interesting. Lu Ping glanced in the direction of Yuan Zhan's cultivation room from the seaside. Then, he looked in the northwest direction in the direction of Tianling Mountain. No one knew what he was thinking. Then, he turned around and flew eastward on his cloud. Lu Ping seemed to have understood something. He stretched out a finger, and a stream of seawater condensed into a water sword. The nature of this water sword was no different from the surrounding seawater, and it floated along with the waves. However, through this water sword, Lu Ping was able to grasp the rhythm of the sea's undulations. In that instant, the water sword seemed to have a life of its own. It melted with the seawater, yet it was different from the seawater. Lu Ping was overjoyed. This was the psychic sword light. He didn't expect that under these coincidental circumstances, he would actually comprehend the realm of psychic sword light. With a flick of his hand, Lu Ping sent out another water sword. This time, it was as agile as before, as if it could grasp the pulse of the sea. Lu Ping sent out one water sword after another. After sending out the 55th water sword, the water sword finally lost its spirituality, appearing out of place in the sea. With a wave of his hand, Lu Ping erased the other 54 water swords. Although he was still far from reaching the level of Taoist Jin Li's 648 swordlights, to him, this was already an incredible improvement. Suppressing the joy brought about by his improvement in swordsmanship, Lu Ping raised his head. There was no trace of the blurred figure of the cultivator in the air. Lu Ping laughed bitterly and slowly floated to the surface of the water. Could it be that I was wrong? Your Excellency is truly skilled to actually be able to follow me for such a long time. If it weren't for your Excellency's sword chi soaring to the heavens and revealing your tracks, I'm afraid I wouldn't have even known that I was being followed. Lu Ping turned around vigilantly, looking at the person who spoke. Who else could it be other than the cultivator he had been following? He didn't know what method this person had used, but when Lu Ping floated to the surface of the water, he had concealed his tracks, so Lu Ping hadn't noticed him. Lu Ping laughed bitterly, knowing that it was because he had just entered a state of enlightenment. Although he had comprehended the realm of psychic sword light, he had been so engrossed in practicing his swordsmanship that he had forgotten to conceal himself, allowing the cultivator to discover his tracks. Lu Ping's heart stirred, but he didn't immediately tear apart the cultivator. Instead, he asked in a serious tone, "And what is your Excellency doing here? Are you a cultivator from Zhenling?" The cultivator asked in a deep voice. His blurred figure took 2 steps back, and Lu Ping knew that the cultivator's spiritual energy was surging, and he was on guard. Lu Ping didn't deny it. Instead, he said ambiguously, "My goal is the same as your Excellency's. Aren't we both here for that mini treasures boy?" Lu Ping's face was covered by a pale mask, and he had also deliberately changed his voice. Chapter 198. Although the cultivator tried his best to resist, Lu Ping was not an ordinary cultivator. The Qing Han sword broke through the cultivator's defense and opened a big hole in his back. "You're not Zhang Weiqing. Who are you?" The cultivator tried his best to suppress the injury on his body and asked in surprise. A trace of panic flashed across his face, but it did not escape Lu Ping's eyes. Lu Ping did not answer. After seriously injuring the cultivator, he took advantage of the situation and attacked again. The Qing Han sword stabbed out again, and 162 sword lights bombarded the cultivator. This time, however, the sword beams were different from the previous attacks. The 162 sword beams were divided into 54 groups. Each group was led by a sword beam with a spiritual connection. They formed a simple tripartite array, and 54 tripartite arrays struck the cultivator's defensive magic artifact in quick succession. The cultivator was shocked. He never thought that the person in front of him had reached such a level of swordsmanship. A green light flashed in his hand, and thousands of green leaves and branches fell down, protecting the cultivator behind. A talisman treasure? Lu Ping's eyes twitched. So what? This talisman treasure was obviously made by an early-stage core forging sage. It could block one of his swords, but could it block several of his swords? Lu Ping shook the Qing Han sword and stabbed out 2 more times. However, after Lu Ping stabbed out 3 times in a row, the scene that appeared in front of him was really unexpected. Originally, Lu Ping was very afraid of the power of talismans. He had used talismans several times to get out of trouble. However, just as Lu Ping's first strike was formed from 54 spirit-connected sword rays and formed dozens of simple and crude 3-talent sword arrays. They rushed towards the Myriad Woods Forest, spell created by the talisman treasure. The simple 3-talent sword arrays easily destroyed half of the early core forging realm Enlightened Master's spell. Then, the second sword light followed, and the forest of 10,000 trees became withering of 10,000 trees. The remaining 30 or so sword lights directly hit the cultivator's protective magic treasure, and the magic treasure shattered. When the third sword beam arrived, the cultivator watched in horror as the cultivator's body was split into 54 pieces. Next, the minor 3 talents sword array stirred, and the cultivator was reduced to a rain of blood. Lu Ping stared blankly at the scene in front of him, unable to react for a long time. He believed that his swordsmanship would certainly be able to break the core forging stage's Myriad Trees Forest spell, but he never thought that he would be able to break more than half of it with just one sword strike. Lu Ping was speechless when he saw the cultivator's body being torn to shreds by his 3 swords. He did not have the bad taste to dismember corpses. However, this was not the first time Lu Ping had done this. After his swordsmanship reached the level of Sword Light Psychic, it became so powerful. Just after the cultivator took off the protective gauze, the cultivator's blurry figure became clear. Lu Ping had already recognized that this person was senior brother Zhao of the Sea Flame sect who chased him for a month. This gauze was quite good. When worn on the body, combined with the protective aura, it could hide the cultivator's figure. At the same time, it also had the effect of invisibility. This was also the reason why Lu Ping did not find senior brother Zhao when he emerged from the sea. Looking at the former enemy in front of him die so easily in his hands, Lu Ping was silent for a while. Then he activated the 10,000 falling poison spirit that he had just cultivated. The gauze fluttered under the agitation of the aura, and Lu Ping's figure suddenly became blurred. From a distance, it was not much different from senior brother Zhao's previous image, but there was a faint layer of gold in the blurred figure. At this time, on a nameless coral island near the Demon Territory's territorial waters, the originally lush forest was now covered with a thin layer of frost. A dozen early blood condensation demonic beasts were circling the island under the lead of a few mid-blood condensation demonic beasts. Suddenly, 8 flying fish demonic beasts jumped out of the sea and flew towards the coral island. When the flying fish demonic beasts entered the forest, a gust of cold wind blew towards them. The water vapor on the flying fish demonic beasts' bodies instantly turned into icicles. The demonic beasts did not panic. They circulated their demonic spiritual energy on the surface of their bodies. Although the icicles on their bodies increased, it did not affect the flying fish's speed and agility. However, the flying fish demonic beasts thought that they would be able to pass through the forest in no time. But after passing through row after row, the forest suddenly became endless. At this time, the icicles on the flying fish finally covered the demonic beasts' bodies. Due to flying for a long time and resisting the cold wind, the flying fish demonic beasts finally exhausted their spiritual energy and fell into the forest. At this time, 2 green jade hairpins appeared out of nowhere and stabbed the flying fish demonic beasts to death. Looks like this woman is still holding on. Isn't this better? It saves us the trouble of cleaning up those demonic beasts and not leaving any traces. Do you think that Lu Ping will really come? According to the information from Huangli Island, he has indeed set out to sea. But he's really slow. We deliberately left so many clues, but he still hasn't come after 3 days. The sea is turbulent, and the sea breeze is endless. How can there be any clues left behind? That's right. We came here early because of the information provided by a mole on Huangli Island. But who would have thought that this man's mistress is still alive? She even set up a formation on this coral island. She managed to hold on until now under the siege of 20 to 30 demonic beasts, and even killed a dozen of them. This woman and that brat cannot be underestimated. When that brat comes, we'll kill both of them at the same time. This time, once he comes, he won't be able to escape. Don't be careless. Have you forgotten how he escaped from the few of you a few years ago? He was just lucky. If it wasn't for the overflowing sea gang's interference, he wouldn't have escaped. This time, we have so many people to deal with him. This is already the best treatment anyone under the core forging realm can get. Indeed, we're making a mountain out of a molehill. Junior brother Ouyang Weijian said that this man is only on par with him. Although he's difficult to deal with, we are far stronger than him. Moreover, he's just a new late blood condensation cultivator. Speaking of which, why isn't Zhao Chongyun from the Sea Flame sect here yet? The Sea Flame sect is located in the southernmost part of the North Sea. It's normal for them to be the last to arrive. They're here. The Sea Flame sect's Mirage Sea Robe. In the void around the little coral island, several late blood condensation cultivators were hiding. They surrounded the little coral island, and at the same time, their divine sense was sending messages back and forth without restraint. At this time, Lu Ping, who was disguised as the Sea Flame sect's Zhao Changyun, was still wearing the Mirage Sea robe. He glanced at the formation on the coral island, then at the void around the island. The Mirage Sea robe spread out, and Lu Ping disappeared from the void. "Brother Zhao, you're late." "Humph." Lu Ping imitated Zhao Changyun's voice and snorted coldly. He didn't say anything, but he could tell that it was Xianling sect's Zhang Weiqing's voice. "Brother Zhao, did you notice any traces of that kid along the way? Why did you hide yourself with the Mirage Sea robe when you're near us?" The one who spoke was Zhou Weilong. He didn't expect Zhang Weiqing to be here as well. Unhurriedly, Lu Ping continued to imitate Zhao Changyun's tone and said, "Brother Zhou, you're early. To be honest, I don't have full confidence in this operation. This person's arcane energy is extraordinary, and it's better to keep a low profile. If we fail to stop him, we'll be in big trouble in the future." The people hidden in the void fell silent. It was obvious that they were pondering over Zhao Changyun's words. After a long while, a deep voice rang out, "Brother Zhao, you're exaggerating. This person is only on par with my junior brother Ouyang. I have a deep friendship with junior brother Ouyang, and I know his strength very well. This time, I'll make sure that Jinling sect's treasure boy falls here." Lu Ping's eyelids twitched. He didn't know who this person was, but he guessed that this person was Zhenling's disciple. He sneered and said, "You sure have a good tone. It's no wonder that Xianling sect has 3 of the 18 generals of the North Sea. You're like the sun in the sky, so of course you can talk big." Everyone present could hear the mockery in Zhao Changyun's tone. They knew that Peng Changqing, one of the 18 generals of the North Sea, was killed by Ouyang Weijian of Xianling sect. It was inevitable that some people would say some sarcastic words. "Ha ha ha, senior brother Miao Weidong of Xianling sect, junior brother Zhao of Haiyan sect, we're all here for that Bratchenling. Let's not ruin our friendship because of trivial matters." Zhao Changyun was surprised. "I didn't expect senior sister He Li Sin of Shuiyin Pavilion to be here too. This senior brother Miao must be Miao Weidong? With the strength of senior sister He and brother Miao, the 2 of the 18 generals of the North Sea, this Lu guy won't have an easy time." He Li Sin continued to giggle. "This Lu brat tricked me in the 7-star sky. This time, I'll get back at him no matter what. Brother Miao and junior brother Zhou Weilong are from the same sect, and he was even invited by junior brother Zhou. This Lu brat sure has a lot of face." The group was hidden in the air, and they could recognize each other through their divine sense and voice. However, they couldn't see each other's faces clearly. Hence, other than the 4 that Lu Ping could recognize, the other 5 were unknown. Lu Ping was only able to imitate Zhao Changyun's presence because he had interacted with Zhao Changyun before. That was why he was able to imitate Zhao Changyun's presence with his divine sense, and with the help of the Mirage Sea robe, no one was able to see through his disguise. "What is this formation used for?" Zhao Changyun asked purposely. "The one who set up this frost forest formation is that Lu brat's lover. I didn't expect him to be so lucky to have survived until now despite being surrounded by dozens of demonic beasts. However, he was discovered by us, so we left some clues here and waited for that Lu brat to come and die," Zhang Weiqing said through gritted teeth. "Humph, since we have such a lousy array formation, it's fine if someone is in charge of it. We can also catch that brat off guard. Leaving that woman in there will always be an unstable factor. Let me enter the array formation and take his life first," Lu Ping said coldly. With the concealment of the formation, Lu Ping was not afraid that Miao Weidong and the others outside the formation would see his face. With Hu Lily's cooperation, Lu Ping used the formation to silently kill the other 2. After collecting the spoils of war, Lu Ping turned here and there. The frost forest in front of him suddenly moved away from Lu Ping, and a clearing in the forest appeared in front of Lu Ping. A beautiful figure in green was sitting cross-legged on the lush green grass. Who else could it be but Hu Lily? Hu Lily tucked a strand of hair behind her. Her face was slightly pale from overexertion of transcendence energy. She smiled at Lu Ping crisply. Her bright eyes were like crescent moons. There was a hint of gratitude, a hint of gratification, a hint of pride, and a hint of playfulness from a little girl succeeding in her scheme. The two of them looked at each other. A hint of relief remained in Lu Ping's gaze. The hint of pride and playfulness in Hu Lily's gaze was even stronger. Her two pitch-black eyes became like two full moons in a deep well. I knew you would come to pick me up. Hu Lily stood up with a smile. Lu Ping had already walked to her side. Are you injured? Lu Ping asked softly. With all the pills you left behind, even if I was injured, I would have long recovered. Hu Lily spun in a circle in front of Lu Ping, indicating that she was unharmed. In front of Lu Ping, Hu Lily had always presented herself as a mature and intelligent person. This was the first time she had displayed such a timid behavior in front of Lu Ping. Hu Lily looked at Lu Ping's stunned gaze and giggled. Lu Ping also laughed softly. Hu Lily laughed blissfully, and Lu Ping laughed joyfully. The 6 people outside the Frost Forest array finally sensed that something was wrong. The 4 of them had entered the array for such a long time, but there was not the slightest movement from the array, nor was there any news coming out. Even if a school of flying fish demonic beasts had entered, it would still cause the person in charge of the array to expend some effort. Could it be that among the 4 of them, there was an expert proficient in array formations who had already infiltrated the array's eye and killed the woman in charge of the array with a single slash? Chapter 200. Something's not right. There's something wrong with that Zhao Chang'an. Everyone finally sensed that something was wrong. He Li Xin, who was more meticulous, thought of something. Everyone present was an elite of the blood condensation realm, so they were naturally quick-witted people. They immediately noticed that Zhao Chongyun hadn't revealed his true appearance since the beginning. They only knew his identity from the mirage robe that was unique to the Sea Flame sect. However, there was one thing they didn't understand. If this Zhao Chongyun was really an imposter, then how could he use the mirage robe that only the Sea Flame sect's secret technique could use? Could it be that this person was Jinling's spy in the Sea Flame sect? Clearly, no one thought so. In the Frost Forest array, Lu Ping told Hu Lily everything that happened in Lu Ziyuan's cultivation room on Huangli Island. It was completely different from what Hu Lily had told Lu Ping. That day, it was exactly as Yuan Zhan had said. The 3 of them protected the unconscious Jiang Zixuan and got separated from the rest of the group. However, the demonic beasts that were chasing them seemed to have locked onto Hu Lily's group of 4. 8 late blood condensation demonic beasts and 30 to 40 mid blood condensation demonic beasts chased after them relentlessly. Once they caught up to them, the 4 of them would definitely die. Hu Lily's cultivation was at the 5th level of the blood condensation realm. She was the weakest among the 4, and she was also an array cultivator. Compared to Yuan Zhan and Lung Qian, who were carrying the unconscious Jiang Zixuan, her speed was much slower. Gradually, the distance between Hu Lily and the 3 of them widened. However, Yuan Zhan and Lung Qian seemed to have forgotten that Hu Lily was still behind them. They only focused on flying, ignoring Hu Lily's shouts. At this time, how could Hu Lily not know that the 2 of them had abandoned her to block the demonic beasts? Forget about Yuan Zhan, but when she thought about how Lung Qian, who was close to them and Lu Ping's senior sister, actually did such a thing, Hu Lily shuddered. Hu Lily was also a decisive person. With her intelligence, how could she allow the 2 of them to use her as a tool? Ever since Huangli Island's patrol team was attacked and Yang Xian and Mu Jinling were heavily injured, Hu Lily had already guessed something. Thus, Hu Lily decisively turned around and fled towards the north. Just as Hu Lily expected, only a few mid-blood condensation demonic beasts led more than a dozen early blood condensation demonic beasts to chase after Hu Lily. The rest of the demonic beasts continued to chase after Yuan Zhan, Long Qian, and Jiang Zixuan. Hu Lily had used up a lot of her magic power to escape to this coral island. She knew that if she continued to escape, sooner or later she would be overtaken by the demonic beasts due to the exhaustion of her magic power. If I don't come back in 2 days, find a way to sneak into Tianling Mountain. I don't need to tell you what to do next. I trust you can handle everything on Huangli Island for me. Hu Lili knew that her arcane energy was weak, and her forte was formations. In a battle between late blood condensation cultivators, not only would she be useless, but she would also be a burden to Lu Ping. Hence, she nodded and agreed. She then asked worriedly, the 6 people outside are all in the 8th or 9th layer of the blood condensation realm, and 2 of them are part of the North Sea's 18 generals. That Zhou Weilong's strength isn't any weaker than Miao Weidong's. Are you confident in fighting against the 6 of them? Lu Ping scrutinized Hu Lili, then suddenly smiled and said, Don't worry. I just realized that you're a beauty today. I haven't seen enough of you, so I definitely won't let these clowns get away with it. Hu Lili's fair and delicate face instantly turned red when she heard his words. Then, she said generously, I knew you were up to no good. I'm happy that you came today, so I don't care about anything else. I just hope that you can return safely. Hu Lili's words were like a wife's to her husband who was about to leave for a long time. Lu Ping's heart warmed, but he didn't promise her anything. He smiled and walked out of the formation. Even though the Frost Forest formation was exquisitely set up, it wouldn't last long under the combined attacks of a few late blood condensation cultivators. One of the cultivators used the magic artifact in his hand to bombard the magic array once more. Next, the White Frost Forest magic array shook and the white frost on the trees melted away. In just the blink of an eye, the trees had turned green, brimming with life. It was as though in the blink of an eye, the weather had returned from autumn and winter to spring and summer. The fallen trees were the only proof of the devastation that the small island had suffered. Just as the cultivator was about to retrieve his magic artifact, a cyan-colored sword beam shot out from the forest. Over 100 sword beams formed a simple sword array of tri-talents, which charged towards the cultivator. The cultivator didn't panic in the face of danger. He conjured up his earth energy barrier, and a high-grade white bone shield appeared above his head. Seeing the rising sword rays, Miao Weidong had a bad feeling. He quickly shouted, Spiritual Sword Ray. Be careful, this person's sword technique is powerful. Lu Ping had already flown out of the forest and rushed towards the cultivator. At this point, there was no need for them to hide anymore. Lu Ping also recognized the 3 people who didn't speak earlier. They were the 3 late blood condensation cultivators from the Tsonglang sect, Feiyu sect, and Linggu sect, who had ambushed him on the Nameless Island. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. This Tsonglang sect's late blood condensation cultivator was quite strong. With the help of his magic tool and white bone shield, he managed to withstand Lu Ping's sword technique. However, he was pushed back a few dozen meters by Lu Ping's sword. His face was pale, clearly frightened by the power of Lu Ping's sword technique. Lu Ping's face turned solemn. He didn't expect this person to be able to withstand his full power attack. Lu Ping didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, he grabbed Hu Lili's hand and flung her out of the encirclement. Run! At this point, because the Tsonglang sect's cultivator was pushed back, the 6 people's encirclement had been broken. With Lu Ping's help, Hu Lili immediately flew towards the west like a flying sword. No one could stop her in time. Lu Ping was worried that one of the 6 would chase after Hu Lili, so he swung the Qinghan sword in a circle and cast the Stormy Waves Crashing Shore Sword skill. This sword skill was most suited for group battles. More than 100 sword rays split into 6 waves and attacked the 6 people separately. But to her surprise, the 6 of them paid no heed to Hu Lili's departure and focused on attacking Lu Ping. Lu Ping was their target. Hu Lili was just a bait for Lu Ping. That was why they let Hu Lili stay in the Frost Forest array for so long. After a few moves, Lu Ping realized that the 6 people in front of him were far stronger than the ordinary late blood condensation cultivators he killed before. Among the 6, the strongest were Miao Weidong, He Lisin, and Zhou Weilong. The other 3 were slightly weaker, but they were still stronger than ordinary 8th or 9th layer blood condensation cultivators. Lu Ping quickly felt the pressure. He realized that these cultivators were probably nurtured by their sects to become core forging cultivators. There was no need to talk about Miao Weidong and He Lisin, but Zhou Weilong and the other 3 were once the leaders of their sections. They had infiltrated deep into Jinling's buffer zone as bandits and survived Jinling's encirclement unscathed. Naturally, they were extraordinary. Lu Ping thought to himself, in this situation, the longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for me. Although my spiritual energy is much stronger than the others, the opponents have the advantage in numbers. Breaking one finger is better than injuring 10 fingers. After figuring it out, Lu Ping suddenly gathered the scattered sword lights and turned them into a green water jiao. The Qing Han sword pierced out from the top of the water jiao's head like a sharp horn, 2 jiao eyes, and 4 jiao claws, each formed by 9 sword lights. The water jiao charged at the Tsang Hai sect cultivator who was knocked back by Lu Ping's attack. The water jiao bared its fangs and brandished its claws. The Tsang Hai sect cultivator was shocked. He had experienced the power of Lu Ping's sword attack. He had used up a third of his spiritual energy to block Lu Ping's attack. Because of this, his internal organs were shaken, and he almost suffered internal injuries. The Tsang Hai sect cultivator put the white bone shield in front of him again and the flying sword by his side. The cultivator, who was still worried, gritted his teeth and crushed a talisman. The blue and white protective energy around him instantly turned into a sticky blood-red color. At the same time, the other 5 people surrounding Lu Ping saw Lu Ping attacking the Tsang Hai sect cultivator with all his might, but they did not help him. Instead, they aimed their magic weapons at Lu Ping, hoping to injure him severely. Chapter 201. Lu Ping didn't care about the other 5's attacks. He only attached the cloudy sky to Lu Ping's golden protective aura. Magic clouds flashed under his feet as he tried his best to dodge the 5's attacks. Those that couldn't dodge were hit by the 5's magic tools and spells. A series of explosions rang out, and the Azure Waves sect cultivator only had time to let out a blood-curdling scream. His flying sword had already been slapped away by the Azure Flood Dragon's claw, and the horn formed by the Azure sword struck the white bone shield, instantly shattering this high-quality, high-grade magic artifact into 8 pieces. The cultivator's blood-red protective aura was clearly strengthened, but the green flood dragon coiled around the protective aura and clawed at it. The blood-red protective aura instantly thinned. Finally, as the cultivator's protective aura shattered, the sword light that formed the green flood dragon also lost its magic power. The Azure sword turned around and retreated back to Lu Ping. The Azure Waves sect cultivator heaved a sigh of relief. He finally managed to block the attack. However, he saw Lu Ping raise his hand. Under the reflection of the sunlight, the cultivator only saw a faint flash. He cursed inwardly and hurriedly tried to summon back the flying sword that was struck away by the green flood dragon, but it was too late. 2 jade blood needles pierced the cultivator's heart, destroying the core space in one fell swoop and turning the cultivator's heart into a pile of red meat paste. The Azure Waves sect cultivator died in the blink of an eye. However, Lu Ping had already withstood several attacks from the other 5. Even with the cloudy sky and the myriad meteorite poison essence shield, Lu Ping's face still turned pale. He hurriedly summoned the Azure sword back and used a sword technique to block the other 5's attacks. He was secretly shocked at their tyrannical strength. Miao Weidong and the others were even more shocked than Lu Ping. They didn't expect Lu Ping to be able to block all 6 of their attacks and kill one of them at the same time. One had to know that all 6 of them were capable of becoming personal disciples in their respective sects and were nurtured to become core forging realm cultivators. None of them weren't proud and arrogant. But now, the 6 of them couldn't do anything to this 7th layer blood condensation realm cultivator. While they were worried for their safety, they also swore to themselves that they couldn't let this monster escape. However, Lu Ping knew that such an opportunity would never come again. If Lu Ping attacked one of them with all his strength, the others would no longer sweep away the snow in front of them. Instead, they would work together to block his attack. Moreover, the consumption of magic power and divine sense was unbearable even for Lu Ping. Since he couldn't win, Lu Ping decided to escape. Thus, Lu Ping retreated towards the west while blocking the 5 people's attacks. Miao Weidong had always been one of the leaders of the blood condensation realm in Xianling sect. He was the first to notice Lu Ping's intention and said, "He's going to escape. Everyone, we must stop him. If we let him escape today, none of us will be able to live in peace in the future." The crowd recalled Lu Ping's strength as a seventh-layer blood condensation realm cultivator. If he were to advance further in the future, none of them would be able to survive. Hence, the five of them unleashed their respective abilities, determined to take care of Lu Ping. Miao Weidong and Zhou Weilong worked together to block the west, so Lu Ping couldn't escape toward Shunling. To the north, He Li Sin tried her best to delay him while the others supported her. The east was the monster race's territory, so Lu Ping naturally wouldn't consider it. If he made a mistake, he would be attacked by the monster beasts and the cultivators behind him. If that happened, Lu Ping's situation would be even worse. Miao Weidong and the others were obviously planning to drive Lu Ping into the monster race's territory. Ever since the North Sea sects attacked Golden Jiao Island, the monster race's territory seemed to have calmed down a lot. However, the monster beasts were clearly gathering instead of fighting individually. If Lu Ping panicked and ran into the monster race's gathering area, he would definitely die a horrible death. Lu Ping gritted his teeth and swung his arm behind him. A 3-inch silver jade metal seal flew out and collided with Fei Yu and Ling Gu. Lu Ping slashed out with his sword, and another water flood dragon soared from the water's surface, flying towards He Li Sin with its claws and fangs bared. He Li Sin's expression changed. The scene of Lu Ping killing the Azure Waves sect's cultivator was still vivid in her mind. He Li Sin did her best to defend while shouting, "Senior Martial Brother Miao! Senior Martial Brother Zhou, come help me!" Miao Weidong stretched out his hand and threw out a jade pendant. The jade pendant transformed into a flaming bird and flapped its wings to attack the water flood dragon. However, a crystal bowl suddenly appeared above Lu Ping's head. As Lu Ping cast an incantation, a huge wave 20 zhang high rose from the sea surface and rushed towards Miao Weidong and Zhou Weilong. Miao Weidong and Zhou Weilong were ready for battle. However, Lu Ping suddenly turned around and followed behind the metal seal, rushing towards the south. The two cultivators in the south, one wielding an iron hammer and the other wielding a flying axe, attacked the incoming iron stamp together. However, the iron stamp suddenly expanded, turning into a huge iron stamp with a length, width, and height of 3 zhang, 3 qi, and 3 cun. Then, it charged towards the two cultivators. Miao Weidong's group was focused on killing Lu Ping, so they didn't notice this phenomenon. Lu Ping had long been paying attention to the abnormal behavior of the demonic beasts. As soon as he noticed this, he immediately prepared himself for the worst. He Li Sin and the others were, after all, the elites of their respective sections. Although they didn't notice anything unusual in the monster race's sea region at first, as they ventured deeper into the monster race's sea region, they finally noticed something amiss. They secretly raised their guard and became distracted from their fights with Lu Ping. Chapter 202. Right at this moment, Lu Ping seemed to have discovered something. His face suddenly turned pale. Ignoring the attacks from the 5 people fighting him in a continuous battle, he used the cloudy sky to wrap the water curtain heaven flower that was fused with the meteorite prime of myriad poison and flew towards the southwest direction guarded by the two cultivators from the Soaring Feather sect and Ling Gu sect. Lu Ping's sudden attack caught the 5 unprepared, but the 5 of them still tried to intercept him at the same time. 5 magic tools landed on Lu Ping's body at the same time. The cloudy sky was like a cloud that was blown away, revealing a golden aura. Fortunately, the aura that Lu Ping had strengthened was able to block the 5's attacks. Lu Ping's face turned pale and a faint trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. However, Lu Ping still didn't dare to look back. He took out a top-grade spirit recovery pill from his storage ring and swallowed it. The magic cloud beneath his feet flashed, and he flew even faster. The 5 of them naturally wouldn't let Lu Ping escape so easily, but Lu Ping's actions still raised their vigilance. Miao Weidong and He Li Sin looked at each other as if they had thought of something at the same time. Right at this moment, a deep drum sound suddenly came from the bottom of the sea. Dong! When the 5 of them heard the drum sound, they simultaneously felt the magic power within their bodies fluctuate. Their flying figures couldn't help but slow down. Lu Ping, who was in front, also paused. However, he was faster than the 5 of them in breaking free from the disturbance of the drum sound. He continued to fly towards the southwest direction, increasing the distance between them. Dong! Another drum sound rang out, and the magic power within the 6 of them went out of control again. This drum sound is strange. Everyone, leave this place first. Li Sin suppressed the uneasiness in her heart and said anxiously. The other 4 also panicked for no reason. When cultivators reached this stage, some of their senses and premonitions would also become more acute. Without needing Li Sin to say anything, everyone quickened their pace. Dong! The 3rd drum sound rang out. Miao Weidong seemed to have thought of something. This red-faced man's face finally turned pale as he cried out involuntarily, "True Spirit War Drum! It's the True Spirit War Drum! Hurry and run!" When Li Sin heard Miao Weidong's cry, how could she not know what had happened? She screamed, "Beast tide, how? Why is there a beast tide now?" Right at this moment, the beating of the True Spirit War Drum suddenly became continuous. Dong dong dong, dong 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 dong. Zhou Weilong inadvertently turned his head to look. Suddenly, his eyes widened as he looked behind him in disbelief. He saw a black line suddenly rising from the surface of the sea in the east. The black line rose higher and higher until it covered the sky and the earth. Zhou Weilong immediately cried out in alarm. When the other 4 heard this, they all turned around to take a look as well. The black lines that blotted out the sky turned out to be an endless horde of flying demonic beasts. A cacophony of cries came from nowhere, growing louder and louder. How could the crowd still care about exclaiming? All they had left was the thought of fleeing for their lives. Right at this moment, the blue sea behind them suddenly turned darker. It was as though something was about to float up from the bottom of the sea. Not long after, a huge splash appeared on the surface of the sea. It was as though the entire sea was boiling. The sound of water splashing rang out, and countless demonic beasts suddenly emerged from the bottom of the sea. Accompanied by the beating of the True Spirit War Drum, they advanced towards the northern sea islands. The roars of various demonic beasts came in all shapes and sizes, shaking the world. Seeing the 5 human cultivators running away, the group of demonic beasts cried out in excitement. They immediately broke away from the huge horde of demonic beasts heading west and chased after the 5. At this moment, no one dared to look back. There was only one word left in their minds: run. At this moment, Lu Ping had already left the 5 of them far behind. However, when he heard the deafening roars of the demonic beasts behind him, how could Lu Ping dare to feel even the slightest bit of joy? Lu Ping controlled the magic cloud bracelet with all his might to flee. Under the influence of his magic power, it slowly turned into a blue cloud. Suddenly, a sound rang out. There was a trace of curiosity and surprise in the voice, clearly audible amidst the roars of the demonic beasts. To think that I would bump into a few familiar fellows here. Oh, there is also a person that this young master is interested in. The one who spoke was an ethereal voice, seemingly unconcerned about the approaching demonic beasts. Young Master Jin, Sage Jin Li. Miao Weidong and Li Sin were both cultivators who had participated in the 7-star celestial operation. Naturally, they knew who the one who spoke was. They could not stop themselves from crying out in fear. At that moment, Lu Ping felt like dying. An elegant and handsome young master with a folding fan in his hand was walking over the sea from the north. His movements appeared slow, but were actually fast. In just a few steps, he had arrived before Lu Ping. Who else could it be but the one who had caused his scalp to go numb? Sage Jin Li? Sage Jin Li had come from the north and was blocking Lu Ping's path. Without a word, Lu Ping avoided Sage Jin Li and continued to flee southwest. How could the 5 cultivators behind him still have any clear sense of direction? Seeing that Lu Ping was fleeing southwest, they also followed Lu Ping. The group of demonic beasts following behind the 5 of them also headed towards the southwest direction. Under the leadership of this group of demonic beasts, more and more demonic beasts followed the group of demonic beasts like the wind, chasing after the 5 of them. Sage Jinli frowned as he looked at this group of demonic beasts that had gone out of control. However, compared to the massive beast tide, although this group of demonic beasts was large in number, it did not affect the overall situation. Moreover, under the stimulation of the true spirit war drum, these blood condensation demonic beasts had become abnormally violent. Even Sage Jinli found it difficult to restrain them. Sage Jinli coldly snorted. The reason why this group of demonic beasts had gone out of control was because of these 6 human ants. Sage Jinli stood on the surface of the sea, not pursuing them. Instead, he clenched his right hand and a flying sword suddenly appeared in his hand. This flying sword style was exactly the same as the top-grade flying sword Sage Jinli had used in the 7-star celestial operation. However, at this moment, this flying sword was glowing brilliantly. A mysterious and sharp chi, stimulated by Sage Jinli's true essence, flew straight towards the 6 cultivators. Lu Ping, who was running at full speed, suddenly felt a chill run down his back. A sword intent was pointing at him from afar. He couldn't help but turn his head and see Sage Jinli casually waving his hand. It was exactly the same as when Lu Ping had first encountered the Jin Young Master in the 7-star celestial operation. However, this time, Sage Jinli was using the true essence of a core forging realm cultivator. A sword chi, several dozen zhang long, shot out from Sage Jinli's flying sword. In the air, it suddenly split into over 600 sword lights. Then, the sword lights were formed into 6 swordfish, which streaked across the sea, chasing after Lu Ping, Miao Weidong, He Lisin, and the others. Seeing the core forging realm cultivators make their move, Miao Weidong and the others clearly understood that this was a moment of life and death. How could they possibly be the slightest bit lucky? They all used their trump cards and attacked the swordfish with all their might. 2 cultivators from the Soaring Feather sect and Ling Gu sect let out miserable screams as they were severely injured by the swordfish. They fell into the sea and were soon drowned in the beast tide, losing all signs of life. Zhou Weilong spat out a mouthful of blood as he struggled to keep up with Miao Weidong and He Lisin. Their faces were pale. It was obvious that they had expended a large amount of their transcendence energy to resist the swordfish. Lu Ping turned around to look at the swordfish chasing after him. This swordfish was clearly a size larger than Miao Weidong and the others, and he cursed inwardly. This Sage Jinli really thought too highly of him. Lu Ping didn't dare to hold back any longer. He wielded the azure sword with all his might, and his cultivation instantly rose from the 7th layer of the blood condensation realm to the 8th layer. His vigorous transcendence energy flowed into the azure sword along with the strong heartbeat of his heart. The azure sword flew through the air and drew over 100 sword lights, forming an azure flood dragon about the same size as the swordfish. It dove into the sea and charged towards the menacing swordfish. Sage Jinli exclaimed in surprise once again. He didn't expect that this kid's swordsmanship had already reached the sword light psychic realm. If Lu Ping could escape with his life this time, then in the future, when he formed his gold core, he would definitely be a match for him. Thinking of this, Sage Jinli's interest in Lu Ping grew even more. The azure flood dragon and swordfish collided in the sea, instantly creating a huge wave that blocked the path of Miao Weidong and the others who were trying their best to escape. The 3 of them didn't expect that Lu Ping's cultivation was actually at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm. How was this possible? It had only been 3 months since he broke through to the late blood condensation realm in the 7-star skies. The 5 of them had chased Lu Ping for an entire day, yet they hadn't been able to force out Lu Ping's true strength. The 3 of them suppressed the shock in their hearts, dodged the huge wave, and continued to flee. At this time, the demonic beast horde chasing after them was getting larger and larger. Gradually, it began to affect the beast tide. What the 3 of them didn't know was that it wasn't that Lu Ping would rather be chased by them than reveal his cultivation at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm. Instead, it was because Lu Ping had some misgivings. Every time Lu Ping broke through to the blood condensation realm, he would make ample preparations and build a solid foundation. Every time he broke through, the new condensed blood bead he formed would always be 1/3 the size of the original one. Moreover, after consuming the heart-dissolving pill this time, Because Lu Ping had just broken through to the late blood condensation realm, he wasn't able to make as much preparations as before. As expected, after Lu Ping luckily broke through to the 8th layer, his 8th condensed blood bead was only 1/6 the size of the previous 7 beads. How could Lu Ping feel at ease revealing his 8th layer blood condensation realm cultivation? Of course, what Lu Ping didn't know was that when most blood condensation realm cultivators formed a new condensed blood bead, it was only 1/6 the size of the original condensed blood bead. The 2 spirit beasts formed from sword lights tumbled in the sea, and the victor was decided in an instant. The green flood dragon's head and claws wrapped around its body, while the swordfish bit its back and swung its tail. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that every part of the swordfish's body seemed to have a mind of its own. It was able to adjust flexibly during the battle, and the entire swordfish looked very lively. On the other hand, Lu Ping's green flood dragon only had a pair of intelligent eyes and 4 sharp claws that were comparable to the swordfish's. The rest of its body was rigid, and it was quickly at a disadvantage as the swordfish devoured it bit by bit. Fortunately, the green flood dragon still had the Qing Han sword on its head. Before the green flood dragon collapsed, it forcefully sliced off 1/3 of the swordfish's body. The rest of the body was torn apart by the green flood dragon, leaving only a set of fish bones. Chapter 203. Although Lu Ping had also reached the realm of sentient swordsmanship, how could he compare to Taoist Jin Li's swordsmanship? Even so, Lu Ping's strength caused Taoist Jin Li to have a whole new level of respect for him. The fishbone collided with Lu Ping's cloudy sky. Lu Ping borrowed the force of the collision to fly southeast, once again leaving Miao Weidong and the others a distance behind. Taoist Jin Li took 2 steps forward, and the seawater beneath his feet surged up, sending him directly behind Miao Weidong and the others. His flying sword soared into the sky. It was still the same 600 or so sword lights, but this time, there was an additional flying sword. A flying sword of the transcendent grade. Zhou Weilong was directly shredded to pieces by the sword light. He Li Xin and Miao Weidong's faces were deathly pale, and they each took out a talisman treasure. Each talisman transformed into a giant net that covered the sky, catching a portion of the incoming sword lights. However, even more sword lights tore through the net. He Li Xin's defensive transcendent artifact was instantly broken, and one of her legs was separated from her body. She only had enough time to let out a shrill scream before she was drowned by the horde of demonic beasts. Miao Weidong's talisman transformed into a giant water lion that pounced towards the sword light. It was actually a beast talisman. This beast talisman was obviously of a higher grade than He Li Xin's talisman treasure. However, no matter what kind of talisman treasure it was still activated by a blood condensation cultivator, and was equivalent to an attack from a core forging enlightened master. Under the continuous attacks of a core forging enlightened master, the talisman was unable to withstand for long. In the blink of an eye, it was surrounded by hundreds of sentient sword lights, completely nibbling away at it. Fortunately, this beast talisman had bought Miao Weidong some time. After paying the price of having his protective astral energy destroyed, Miao Weidong was finally able to use the blood escape technique to temporarily escape the entanglement of the sword lights. He even managed to run ahead of Lu Ping. At this moment, Lu Ping's expression was solemn. What he was about to face was no longer a sentient sword light, but a silver flying sword, a transcendent artifact. Lu Ping formed a seal with his hands and shouted, "Go!" A foot-long pestle flew out from Lu Ping's hand, which he had been preparing for a long time. It flew straight towards Taoist Master Jin Li's silver flying sword. Taoist Master Jin Li sneered, "You actually have a transcendent artifact? But do you think that just because a blood condensation cultivator has a transcendent artifact, they can contend against a core forging cultivator? What a joke. Today, I'll show you the true difference between the blood condensation and core forging realms." The silver flying sword suddenly became agile in the air. Instead of colliding with the pestle, it dodged and fiercely struck the side of the pestle. Lu Ping tried to command the pestle to avoid it, but found that it was difficult to control the pestle with his divine sense. The flying sword lightly hit the pestle from the side, and it immediately flew to the side. Master Jin Li laughed heartily, as if mocking Lu Ping for overestimating himself. Lu Ping hardened his heart and used all of his divine sense to control the pestle. His divine sense was rapidly being consumed, and Lu Ping couldn't care less. The pestle finally became agile again, and it turned around, finally catching up to the flying sword and smashing into its blade. Taoist Master Jin Li's flying sword had only been inscribed with a single treasure seal. Taoist Master Jin Li had high standards, so he naturally wouldn't place a second treasure seal on his own flying sword. This would reduce the power of the flying sword for no reason. However, this also meant that the flying sword's current power couldn't compare to that of the pestle's two identical treasured seals. Taoist Master Jin Li's expression finally turned serious. He coldly said, "I didn't expect your divine sense to be so outstanding." Ignoring his splitting headache, Lu Ping summoned the Azure Phoenix and continued to flee southwest. At this time, they were already close to the buffer zone of the sea. The monster horde behind Lu Ping was growing larger and larger. From a bird's eye view, one would discover that the entire monster tide that was advancing west from north to south had been torn apart by Lu Ping's group. Moreover, the further south they went, the thicker the monster tide became. The Azure Phoenix knew that this was a moment of life and death. It let out a clear cry, and wind began to swirl around its wings. At the same time, it ignited with Azure Phoenix flames. After a short while, it had once again left Miao Weidong behind. Lu Ping sat on the Azure Phoenix's back, doing all he could to recover his exhausted divine sense. At this time, Lu Ping suddenly sensed that from behind the monster tide, there was an oppressive and powerful aura. The Azure Phoenix wailed under the pressure of this soaring demonic qi. Lu Ping knew that these tyrannical auras belonged to the Yao clan's enlightened masters hidden within the monster tide. However, Lu Ping didn't know why these enlightened masters didn't try to stop him. However, this was exactly what Lu Ping wished for. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Lu Ping didn't need to guess to know that it was Miao Weidong. How could he escape from the monster tide and Taoist Master Jin Li's pursuit? At this time, Lu Ping had already fled south to Xinling sect's buffer zone. The Yao clan's enlightened masters hidden within the monster tide had finally begun to make their move. The demonic beasts that Lu Ping and the others had lured away were now part of the monster tide. Lu Ping popped a spirit recovery pill into her mouth, then placed her into his spirit beast pouch. Beneath his feet, the magic cloud circle flashed, and he continued flying southwest. Seeing Taoist Master Jin Li and the beast tide chasing after him, Lu Ping's eyes lit up. The southeast of the northern sea islands was the Chiu family's sphere of influence on Chiu Yun Island. It was also a possible secret base of the overturned seas sect. More importantly, Lu Ping knew that on a nameless, uninhabited island outside of Chiu Yun Island, there was a secret transmission array of the overturned seas sect. Chapter 204. Lu Ping didn't know where the transmission array's destination was, but by using it, Lu Ping could at least shake off the pursuit of Taoist Jin Li and the demonic beast horde. At this critical juncture, he could only try to save a dead horse. A majestic sword chi soared into the sky as Taoist Jin Li's life flying sword once again produced over 600 sentient sword lights. Then, the flying sword transformed into a magic treasure phantom that was several tins of zhang long. The 600 sentient sword lights were all embedded within the phantom, transforming into a gigantic sword that pierced through the heavens and chopped down at Lu Ping. This was a moment of life and death. Lu Ping had already prepared a waterspout talisman in his hand and crushed it. This talisman contained the final waterspout spell that his teacher, Taoist Master Lu Xinling, had created when he was at the 7th layer of the core forging stage. 7 waterspouts lined up side by side in front of Lu Ping. Using a waterspout on the surface of the sea undoubtedly increased the spell's power by 30%. Lu Ping stretched out a finger, and the 7 waterspouts converged towards Taoist Jin Li. Taoist Jin Li's expression finally changed. Although using a talisman to deal with a core forging stage master wasn't very reliable, using a spell that was the pride of a late core forging stage master was naturally a different matter. If things went wrong, Taoist Jinli might actually fail miserably and be seriously injured by this talisman. The majestic sky-piercing sword carried with it a momentum that could split mountains and split seas as it destroyed 4 of the waterspouts in succession. The sword itself suffered quite a bit of damage, but it still continued to cleave towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping knew that this was a moment of life and death. He poured all the magic power in his body into the azure sword. Lu Ping used the Thousand Snow sword art, borrowing the strength of the windless seawater to create 3 waves. Each wave contained 18 sentient sword lights, and the other 36 sentient sword lights formed a sword wave that slammed towards the gigantic sword. As Lu Ping concentrated on controlling the sword art, the sword light within the waves changed once more. The 18 sentient sword lights suddenly became 36. 2/3 of the 162 sentient sword lights that Lu Ping had split into had reached the sentient realm. The 3 sword waves finally cleansed the psychic sword light from the giant sword, leaving only Taoist Master Jin Li's origin flying sword. It broke through the sword waves and struck the cloudy sky, like a sharp knife cutting through a high-quality cloth. As the gigantic sword flew towards him, Lu Ping began to retreat with all his might. However, how could a cultivator's speed compare to that of a flying sword? His protective stellar chi was quickly torn apart. 2 7th-layer blood condensation cultivators suddenly leapt out from the sunken ground and shouted, "Who is it?" As Lu Ping walked over, he tossed a command token to one of them and said, "The overturned Sea Gang's Ocean Calming Hall's Hall Master has been ordered to return to the palace. Please activate the transmission array." The cultivator who received the command token confirmed that it was real and didn't think too much about it. He stepped aside and returned the command token to Lu Ping. After receiving the command token, Lu Ping calmly walked towards the center of the transmission array. Right at this moment, another cultivator suddenly said, "That's not right. He isn't the Ocean Calming Hall's Hall Master." What? The cultivator who received the command token earlier was stunned. The command token was obviously real. While he was still in a daze, Lu Ping's Qinghan sword had already beheaded him. The other cultivator cast out a mystic instrument and was about to attack the teleportation array, wanting to destroy it. But how could Lu Ping let him have his way? With a flip of his hand, he parried the mystic instrument with the Qinghan sword, and a water column shot out from the crystal bowl and bound the cultivator tightly. Before the cultivator could react, 2 blood jade needles pierced through the cultivator's heart core. Lu Ping arrived at the transmission array. 49 mid-grade spirit stones were embedded in the center of the array. At this moment, Taoist Master Jin Li had already seen Lu Ping land on the desolate island and was rushing over. Lu Ping placed the command token in the center of the transmission array and poured his transcendence energy into it, connecting the 49 spirit stones one by one. The transmission array immediately activated, emitting a faint white light. By this time, Taoist Master Jin Li had already flown near the desolate island. Seeing that Lu Ping was activating the transmission array, Taoist Master Jin Li became furious. His natal flying sword shot towards Lu Ping within the array. As the array activated, Lu Ping saw the storage pouches hanging from the waists of the 2 cultivators guarding the array. His heart stirred. He put them away. By this time, Taoist Master Jin Li's flying sword had already arrived. At this moment, the faint light of the transmission array suddenly brightened. In a flash of white light, there was no trace of Lu Ping within the array. Taoist Master Jin Li walked forward and looked at the 2 corpses on the ground. He opened his mouth and swallowed them, seemingly savoring the taste of the 2 cultivators. Then, he circled the transmission array twice, deep in thought. Finally, as if he had made up his mind, he took out 49 mid-grade spirit stones from his storage belt and inserted them into the transmission array. Then, he poured his true essence into the command token that Lu Ping had left in the center of the array. Lu Ping packed up the 2 storage bags and turned to walk out of the cavern. At this moment, the transmission array behind him flashed again. Lu Ping's heart trembled. He naturally knew who was coming. Without any hesitation, Lu Ping's Qinghan sword slashed at the transmission array. After a series of crackling sounds, the glimmer that just appeared disappeared along with the collapse of the transmission array. Lu Ping looked at the collapsed transmission array and sighed helplessly. He probably couldn't go back in a short time. Then Lu Ping carefully walked out of the cavern. He didn't know what kind of world was waiting for him outside the cavern. Chapter 205. Lu Ping used the spirit concealment technique to hide his cultivation level to the 6th layer of the blood condensation realm. As soon as he emerged from the underground cave, he immediately smelled a faint smell of blood. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He quickly used the mirage robe to conceal his tracks, and at the same time, he used the invisible sword art to conceal his aura. Then, he stood at the entrance of the cave and observed his surroundings. This was a mortal's courtyard. Lu Ping was currently in the backyard of the courtyard. The entire courtyard was littered with the corpses of 7 or 8 cultivators dressed in the same bright silver robes as the ones in the cave. The corpses had obviously been searched, and their storage items were nowhere to be found. Lu Ping turned around to look at the cave that he came out from, but he discovered that there was only a pile of hay there. There was no cave at all. What a brilliant illusion array! Lu Ping rubbed his chin with his fingers. There was no spirit vein here, so it was obviously an illusion array set up with an array disk. The cultivators who killed the silver-robed cultivators obviously did not discover this underground cave. However, these cultivators were too inexperienced. They even forgot to destroy the corpses. Lu Ping brandished the Qinghan sword and slashed at the pile of hay. The pile of hay was instantly torn apart like a painting, revealing a dark cave entrance. Lu Ping took out a small array disc that was embedded above the cave entrance. On it were densely engraved spirit sparking wires, forming a delicate but extremely complicated array formation. There were more than 100 low-grade spirit stones embedded in the disc, but they were all turned to dust by Lu Ping's sword strike. Lu Ping felt a headache coming on as he looked at the complicated array formation on the disc. He decided to give this to Hu Lili to study in the future. He didn't know if Hu Lili had safely returned to the sect. Yuan Zhan would definitely arrange for people to assassinate him and Hu Lili in order to prevent them from returning to Zhenling. However, he didn't expect that Lu Ping had already seen through his plans. With Hu Lili's craftiness, it wouldn't be difficult for her to avoid these assassins and return to the sect safely. This was not a place to stay for long. Lu Ping thought about it and released Samling from the spirit beast bag. Samling spat out its forked tongue and sniffed around. After that, Lu Ping kept it inside the spirit beast bag and turned the corpses on the ground to ashes. He made it look like the murderer killed the silver-robed cultivator in the courtyard and accidentally found the hidden crypt. Finally, he destroyed the teleportation array in the crypt and escaped. After doing all this, Lu Ping turned into a blue escape light and disappeared from the courtyard. He didn't expect to be in the East Ocean. Lu Ping waved his hand and called over a minor repairs guide. Every city would have a few rogue cultivators with a low cultivation of minor repairs cultivation. They would act as guides for unfamiliar cultivators at the city gates to earn some spirit stones to improve their cultivation. The guide called over by Lu Ping led him to a cultivator's inn. This Li family inn was the property of the Li family in the Three Families city. There used to be a small spirit vein on the Three Families island. Later on, the Three Families divided the spirit vein into 3 branches and nurtured them meticulously. After hundreds of years, each branch returned to the level of a small spirit vein. The cultivators' inns were actually immortals' caves. Because these immortals' caves were located on the outskirts of the Zhang, Wang, and Li families' encampments, these immortals' caves allowed the cultivators to absorb some of the spiritual qi from the Three Families' encampments. Through the conversation with the minor repairs guide, Lu Ping gained some understanding of the Three Families Island. Seeing that the minor repairs guide had brought him to the Li Families Inn, Lu Ping asked in confusion, "Little Sima, why did you come here? Didn't the Zhang and Wang families' cultivator inns have more abundant spiritual qi because their immortals' caves are cultivated better?" The guide, Little Sima, replied, What Senior Lu said is correct. However, the Immortals' caves in these two inns have always been in short supply. Moreover, they are extremely expensive. If you are not familiar with them, you will not be able to rent one. Although the Li family's inn is also very popular, there isn't much of a rumor. As long as you have a spare Immortals' cave, you can buy one. Lu Ping nodded and followed little Sima into the Li family's inn. The innkeeper quickly came forward and asked, "Sir, are you here to rent a cave?" Lu Ping was impressed by the innkeeper's straightforwardness, so he nodded. The innkeeper quickly called for a waiter to serve tea and said, "Our Li family's cave is divided into 3 classes. The outermost class is for early blood condensation cultivators, the middle class is for mid-blood condensation cultivators, and the innermost class is for late blood condensation cultivators." Lu Ping took a sip of the spiritual tea. This tea was made from the lowest grade of spiritual tea, so the spiritual qi contained in it was nothing special. The spiritual water used to make the tea was still acceptable, but it was not as good as the underground spring in Lu Ping's Huangli Island cave. The innkeeper was a discerning person. He saw Lu Ping take a sip of the tea, frowned, and put down the cup. He knew that this was a big customer, so he asked, "Sir, are you here to rent a mid-grade cave?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.